The little colorful pig eagerly waits for her heat every day, imagining the scene of being surrounded by handsome males. As a result, her younger piglet sisters have already had offspring. She still hasn't been able to enter her heat. Even her size is smaller than that of piglets her age. This has led to no males in the tribe wanting to choose her. Without her heat, she cannot transform into a human. She has been a piglet for 16 years. She has become the laughingstock of the entire black pig tribe. Mugiuxi should have reincarnated as a feline, but due to an operator's mistake, she reincarnated as a small white piglet that doesn't grow. And in a world where only the strongest survive, in an ancient beast world where she could be devoured at any moment. Although the river god, as an apology, gifted her a cultivation space, the size of the fertile land is related to her weight. Being a small piglet, she eats heartily. She has only gained a pound of flesh for every measure of land. Enraged, she almost vomits blood and dies on the spot. Clearly, she is just a pig. But she cannot live peacefully as a pig should. Furthermore, she has to worry every day about being eaten by beasts. Without an exceptional powerful talent, she can only hope to become human after entering heat, and then seek several male beast companions to protect her. But 16 years have passed. She has become the only female in the tribe who has not gone into heat. The males who once pursued her have gradually distanced themselves. Little Hyuxi made a secret promise. When she reaches heat and becomes human, she will definitely destroy their pig intestines. A few days ago, a female from the neighboring goat tribe entered heat. So today, they are holding an initiation ceremony for her. Single males from various nearby clans will attend. They will compete to become her first mate. Mugiuxi has already reached adulthood, so her tent on Mount Mii is well prepared. That's why they introduce her to the daughter of Mount Ban for experience, so she can learn in advance about the mate selection process. The goat clan has seen several beastmen gradually arriving. When a group of rank 6 black boars arrives, it instantly causes a great commotion. Here, most beastmen are only level 2 to 4. Only the tribe chief is level 5. She did not expect that this young black pig beastman she did not recognize would turn out to be a powerful level 6. She could not imagine that the robust black pig beastman had such strength and level, and her mind began to calculate. If, in the end, he does not become the mate of the goat female, then she will make an effort and take the initiative to try to make him her mate. After all, she was born in this small tribe. There are very few young beastmen with strength. It is difficult to find one. She must definitely seize this opportunity. After all, this beast world is very dangerous. Her father is already growing older. He cannot protect her for life. And she does not want to be alone forever. Tinja's gaze was irresistibly drawn to Mugi X, the little white pig in beast form still wearing clothes. That is truly strange. He looked at her with great interest a few more times. The corner of his lips curved into a barely perceptible smile. With the entrance of the female goat, the crowd erupted into excitement once again. SX greatly enjoyed this tension. Behind a beast hide, she, now transformed into a human, appeared once more before everyone. Everyone was stunned. They all rushed to display their strength. However, before Naya even reached her side, it was already decided. He was only passing by to watch the spectacle. He was not interested in that goat female. Little Hyuk saw him leaving. Without hesitation, she followed him. Her speed was such that Mugi X could barely keep up. For a moment, she regretted eating so much just for that small plot of land. It seemed that the level 6 black pig beastman was about to leave the goat tribe. Little Hyuk quickly shouted, "The pig ahead, please wait!" Tinja turned around and looked at the little white pig running toward him. Her appearance was so adorable and smooth. Suddenly, he had an urge to hug her. "Little female, do you need something?" Little Hyuxi looked at him, panting. At that moment, she did not know how to begin. After all, she did not even have a human form. After a moment of hesitation, she decided to take a risk. "Well, my name is Mugiuxi. I am a female of the neighboring Black Pig clan. What clan are you from? What's your name? How old are you?" As she spoke, she felt a bit regretful. She was speaking clumsily, like a pig, making it seem like a census. Tinja looked at the struggling female in front of him. He found it a little amusing, but still, he decided to tell her the truth. "My name is Tinja. I am 22 years old. I am a beastman from the northern continent. Why do you ask?" Xiao Hu was about to speak when she was interrupted by several beast goat men approaching. It was that little 16-year-old who had not yet entered heat, Who dared to flirt with a powerful level 6? Where did she get such confidence? Exactly. Who would want a female who can't go into heat? Xiao Hu, being ridiculed, felt frustrated. But she could not find words to refute them. After all, what they said was not entirely wrong. Seeing Muxiuxi's pitiful expression with tightly pressed lips, Tianya inexplicably felt a slight pain. He wished he could go and beat up those beastmen. You, as males, dare to speak about a female like this? Aren't you ashamed? Oh, right, you are all weaklings of level 1 and 2. No wonder you rely on bullying females to feel superior. Those beast goat men, upon hearing that, were immediately embarrassed. One by one, they left resentfully. Seeing this, Mugiuxi suddenly felt a warm flow in her heart. This was the first male to ever speak up for her. Shyly, she spoke again. Thank you, Tianya. I just haven't reached heat yet. My mother said that the latest I will reach heat is at 18. I will definitely enter heat. She gave Tianya a timid look. I want to be your female. Is that okay? As she said this, her ears turned red. Her words grew softer and softer. It was her first time actively pursuing a male. And so directly. Isn't this a little embarrassing? Tinja smiled as he looked at the shy little piglet in front of him. You don't even know what my human form looks like. And yet, you want to be my female? Females in the beast world care about their mate's appearance and strength. And they take great pride in waiting for the males to pursue them. And yet, this little female in front of him surprisingly came to ask him to be her male. She really has a special look and special thoughts. Xiaohe hesitated for a long time, unsure of how to respond. In reality, what interests her is his strength. As for his appearance, based on the average appearance of males in this beastly world, this Tinja shouldn't be too ugly. As for herself, the same cannot be said. Here, females are not as attractive as males. Tinja looked at Xiaohe, who was much smaller than him, with a smile in his eyes. There was a feeling that she did not dare to be his mate, so he politely refused. You're very young. Let's talk about this once you manage to take human form. It's not appropriate for you to mate in this state, right? Upon hearing this, Xiaohe couldn't help but glance at him. Her face immediately turned red. Considering their size difference, she really wouldn't be able to handle it. She didn't know if it was because she was now a pig, but surprisingly, she found this black pig attractive. He could even provide her with a great sense of security, but he rejected her. In this beastly world where females are treated as treasures, she, who does not have a human form, cannot even find a husband. At that moment, Shioji's father approached, his eyes full of concern. How did you leave the clan? I was searching for you everywhere. Father, this black pig beast man named Tinja is very powerful. I wanted to test myself a little. Her father had been injured years ago by a level 4 beast. He was almost devoured, but fortunately he was saved by another wolf companion of her mother. However, since then, his health had been deteriorating. He always feared that one day he would no longer be there, and then no one would be left to protect her. So Ahyu wanted to find a mate soon, so her father wouldn't worry so much. Before leaving, Xiaohin gave one last look at Tinja. Although it was a bit regrettable, she had no way to convince him. Tinja, I'm going back to my clan. We'll meet again if fate allows it. Tinja nodded slightly and said nothing more. He had other things to do. He wouldn't stay in one place for too long. Muji X followed her father back to the Black Pig clan. She hoped to get home before dark. On their way, the two were attacked by a level 3 beast. Mujiuxi looked at the ferocious beast lurking in front of her. Immediately, sweat began to soak her. A deep panic filled her entire body. Xiaohu, when I confront it, you must run immediately. Paride shielded his child behind him and whispered, Yes, I'll go call Weenie and Dad. Mugiuxi knew she would only be a burden to her father here. She had to return quickly to the tribe and call her wolf father to come and help. But the tiger was more interested in this small, white piglet. Ignoring Pashid, it lunged directly at Mugiuxi. Xiaohu was terrified, and her legs weakened. An instinctive scream escaped her, a pig's squeal. Just as the tiger leaped toward Mugiuxi, PID rammed into the tiger with his tusks. From a distance, Tian suddenly heard a sharp scream. His heart stopped for a moment. He immediately rushed toward the source of the sound. When he arrived, he saw a level 3 beast biting into PID's back. Blood was gushing profusely. Without hesitation, he lunged forward and pinned the beast against a large tree with his sharp fangs. Once the beast stopped breathing, he made PID eat the beast core he had obtained. Then, without stopping, He ran in search of Muhyuxi, fearing she might be devoured by other beasts. At that moment, Xiaoju was running through the forest on her little hooves. She needed to return to the tribe quickly so that Papa Wolf could go save her father, Muhyuxi. A voice came from behind her. Muhyuxi, panting, turned around. She saw Tianya rushing toward her at full speed. Upon hearing him say that her father was already fine, Ahu's heart, which had been in suspense, finally calmed down. "Thank you, Tianya," Muhyuxi said. She followed Tianya and found her father. Then they returned to the Black Pig clan under Tianya's protection. Pere was very grateful to Tianya. "According to the rules, you saved me and Xiaohu. You can be Xiaohu's mate. But I also know that you have a high status. You wouldn't be interested in Xiaohu. If you don't have urgent matters, stay here a few more days so I can repay your favor little by little." Tianya responded casually. He was a wandering beast with no home. Wherever he went, that was where he belonged. And he didn't like staying in one place for too long. Now, he had found this white pig beast. He was very curious. What would her human form look like? The human forms of black pig beastmen had wheat-colored skin. Now this Muxinuxi was a white pig. So her skin should be white too, right? Thinking about her pale complexion with a rosy tint, Tianya felt very curious. He looked at the little white pig in front of him, his eyes reflecting deep meaning. It seemed like waiting for her to reach her mating season wouldn't be so bad either. After that, Tianya was accommodated in a cave not far from Mujiuaxi. That was where Ahu's brother had lived before. Tianya, having been on the run for so long, felt a little lonely. She was covered in dirt, with some mud on her face. He asked curiously, "You can't wear clothes in your beast form, right? Does your mother always help you get dressed?" "Yes," Muhyuxi, worried about her father, answered absent-mindedly. "How did you even come up with the idea that beasts would wear clothes?" Tianya was genuinely curious. Because everyone in beast form went without clothing. Even females were like that. They only wore beast pelts after transforming into human form. "The wind blows, and it's cold on the butt," Muhyuxi answered without thinking. Tianya looked at her with a confused expression. Clearly, Muhyuxi's answer puzzled him. Seeing his reaction, Muhyuxi realized she had said something absurd. She quickly explained, "I'm white, different from other beasts. Not covering myself makes me feel uncomfortable." She had once seen her reflection in the river. Her entire body was small and white. Because she retained memories of her past life as a human, she often needed to go to the river to bathe. But she couldn't wash her back in her beast form. Each time, she asked her mother to help her wash. Her mother often joked, "Hurry up and find a mate. Have your mate help you wash." Muhyuxi sighed. She wanted that too, but she couldn't. She looked at Tianya with a serious expression. "Are you really not going to consider it?" Tianya actually quite liked this little white pig. But right now, he was still being hunted by some hyena men. It would be too dangerous for her to follow him. He bit his lip. Finally, he spoke the words of rejection. "Little Hyuxi, can I call you that? You're still very young. Besides, when you enter your mating season, there will be many males competing to be your mate." 2 rejections. Muhyuxi dared not say anything more. Others were already pairing up and having offspring at 13 or 14 years old, and she was already 16. How much younger could she be? It was nothing more than an excuse to reject her. Silently, she led him to an empty cave. "Stay here and wait for me a moment. I'm going back to get some things." Tianya felt uncomfortable seeing her lower her head. In his heart, he made a firm decision. Once he killed those hyena men, he would respond to her feelings. Muhyuxi returned to her pantry. She looked for a beast skin bag and also took out many vegetables and fruits from her storage space. Although the land's surface wasn't large, over the years, she had planted quite a few things. When she returned to Tianya's cave, she realized he was lying there, lost in thought. When Tianya came to his senses, he saw the little female approaching with a large bag. Seeing that she had specially brought food for him, his gaze was full of surprise. "I am a male. I can find food on my own. You don't need to bring me food specifically." The reason he stayed was not to receive rewards. "I'm just curious about what this white pig-like human is like." Hearing his words, Mujiuaxi felt a bit down. "You don't want me as your mate, nor do you want my rewards. Then, what else is left here? Do you think I gave you too little?" "You saved my father and me. It's only right to give you this. I will bring you more tomorrow." "I didn't mean that." Tianya didn't want to explain why he stayed. He stood up and took a potato in his mouth. "Let's eat together." In response to Tianya's invitation, Muhyuxi only ate a cabbage. Since she taught her father how to use fire, her family now mostly eats cooked food. The Lori people also use their own layers for different purposes. Sometimes they are used for roasting meat or keeping warm in winter. Tianya, who didn't understand the reasoning, was a bit curious. "Don't you like eating this stone fruit?" Mugyuxi crunched on the cabbage. "I only eat stone fruit when it's cooked, roasted over a fire, or boiled. It tastes better that way." "How do you do that?" Tianya was growing more and more curious about this little white pig. She always did things differently from others. Mugyuxi explained simply. To her, these were not indescribable secrets. Hearing this, Tianya planned to try it himself. He immediately transformed into his human form and returned with some firewood. Then, he lit a fire using Mugyuxi's method. Mugyuxi was surprised by his quick actions. He was truly a man of action, doing things immediately. But he really did look good in human form. Broad shoulders, a narrow waist, not an ounce of extra fat. As her gaze involuntarily slid downward, she eventually blushed and looked away. Even though she had seen a lot in this beastly world, seeing something slightly different still made her flush. The two chatted while cooking vegetables and fruits over the fire. Tianya looked at the little white pig in front of him, feeling moved. It had been a long time since anyone had eaten with him. Days like these, filled with laughter and conversation, didn't seem so bad. Mugyuxi looked up at the sky and realized it was getting dark. She stood up and said goodbye to Tianya. "I'll walk you home." Tianya quickly stood up and followed her. "It's not necessary. My home isn't far. I can return by myself." Since he didn't want to be her mate, she didn't want to develop too much of a connection with him. She was afraid his kindness would give her false hope. If she grew attached to him, he would just leave. "I should still take you back. After all, it's not safe for a female to walk alone at night." His tone carried deep care and protection. Mugyu bit her lip and didn't say anything else. The path home was less than 50 meters. If he wanted to walk her back, so be it. Along the way, they both remained silent. The air was thick with discomfort, ambiguity, and tension. Feeling uneasy, Mugyu quickened her pace. In the end, she ran straight home. Tianya watched her retreating figure. A smile appeared on his face. She really is a strange little pig. When Mugyuxi arrived home, she first checked on PID. Seeing that he was fine, she went back to her nest to sleep. Not much time had passed. Her mother arrived, teasing her. "I thought you wouldn't come back tonight. Little Yuxi, that black pig beastman is a rare level 6. You should take advantage of this. If you can make him your mate, your father and I will be relieved." Hearing this, Mugyuxi felt both embarrassed and a little discouraged. She certainly wished for that. Unfortunately, he wasn't interested in her. The next morning, after saying goodbye to her mother, Mugyuxi packed a bunch of food to bring to Tianya. When she reached the cave entrance, she saw that Tianya was already lighting a fire to roast the stone fruits. Beside him was a large bunch of bananas. Xiao looked somewhat surprised. "Did you go out to find food on your own?" "I am a male. I will find my own food. Your father is injured. I doubt he can feed you these days. You should keep that food for yourselves." Just as Mugyuxi was about to say something, she was interrupted by the banana Tianya handed her. "I brought this yellow fruit especially for you. Try it and see how it tastes." Mugyuxi stared at him, bewildered. She didn't quite understand. What did he mean by this? Was he being kind to her while rejecting her? Was he playing with her? Trying to act mysterious? Xiao Hu watched him, lost in thought. "Tianya, you don't want to be my mate? Then why are you still being so nice to me?" "You are a female. You should receive the attention of many beastmen." With a simple sentence, he changed the subject. He didn't want to make empty promises. One day, those men would reach her. If he couldn't defeat them, he would have to leave. He couldn't always be by her side. But she deserved to be treated well. Xiao Hu stared at him. Forget it. Asking was pointless. After eating with him, Mugyuxi stood up and said goodbye. "I'm going back to take a bath. I got home late last night and didn't get to bathe. I'll be leaving now." "Is someone going with you? Is it safe?" Although the riverbank wasn't far from the tribe, with level 3 beasts roaming around, he was still a bit worried. Seeing that he seemed concerned for her, Mugyuxi couldn't help but feel a little happy. "My mother is coming with me. I also need her help to bathe and dress." After saying goodbye to Tianya, she ran back home. Seeing Ahiu, her mother couldn't help but tease, come on, I've never seen a pig who loves bathing as much as you." Although Xiang complained, her hands were busy gathering clean clothes and bathing supplies. Mugyu smiled brightly. She knew her mother had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Even though she nagged a bit every time, she always made an effort. Even though she was a pig in this life, she had experienced more than in her past life as a human. Seeing that her mother was almost ready, she excitedly ran outside. "I'll go wait for you at the river." Then, with a splash, she jumped straight into the water. She swam happily back and forth. In the distance, Tianya, who had come out of concern, couldn't help but laugh as he watched her. "She really is a little piglet," he silently observed from behind a large tree, his eyes filled with tenderness. Asang arrived a little late. From afar, she saw Tianya smiling as he watched her little piglet. The love in his eyes was unmistakable. She was a bit confused. Hadn't Xiaohu said he rejected her? But that gaze clearly showed affection. Though she didn't understand why, thinking about her daughter, she felt excited that a high-level beastman had taken an interest in her. She approached and greeted him politely. "Your name is Tianya, right?" Tianya, caught staring, felt slightly uncomfortable. Yeah, that's me. What is it?" "It's just that Xiaohu's father wasn't feeling well a moment ago, and I don't feel at ease. Could you take her clothes to her? And while you're at it, help her scrub her back." Without waiting for Tianya's response, Asang shoved the clothes into his hands. "Thanks, I need to check on her father." She turned and ran off, her footsteps revealing her fear that Tianya might refuse. He frowned several times. In the end, he gathered his courage and approached Mugiwasi, looking at the little pig in the water. That wet skirt clung to her body, though he knew all pigs looked alike. Even so, he wanted to know what was beneath that beast-skin skirt. Why would a beastly form even need clothes? That annoying beast-skin skirt made him want to step closer and tear it off. She seemed to realize that a burning gaze was fixed on her. Mugiuxi abruptly turned around and saw Tinja staring at her intently. That look seemed as if he wanted to devour her. She opened her mouth with some unease. "Did you also come to bathe?" Hearing this, Tinja involuntarily looked away. He swallowed and answered, "Your mother asked me to bring you clothes. While I'm here, I'll help you. I'll help. Scrub your back." Xiaohu's mouth dropped open in disbelief. This is too embarrassing, isn't it? At first, she refused outright. After all, in her past life, she had been a person. How could she let a man scrub her body? For the first time, she hated not being able to transform into a human. She couldn't even bathe without assistance. Muxiu lowered her head in embarrassment. "Leave the things there. I can wash myself." Tinya didn't understand why she was so shy. Everyone is a beast before maturing. There's never a distinction between males and females. Isn't everyone naked? He looked at her, submerged in the water, and smiled slightly. "You can't wash your back? No need to be shy. I won't touch anything else." It was fine. After all, she was in her beastly form now. Besides, in the beast world, creatures in their beastly forms didn't wear clothes. Mugiuxi let Tinya handle it, thinking that, in any case, her buttons were below. He wouldn't be able to see. When Tinya removed her beast-skin clothing and saw her beastly form, a flash of surprise crossed his eyes. She was, surprisingly, completely white. There wasn't a single black spot. Her fur was soft. Her skin was smooth, not rough like other boar men. Tinya placed a hand on Mugiuxi's back. With the other, he offered her a corn cob. "This is what you wanted to eat. Here, take it." Seeing him hand her the corn cob, Mugiuxi immediately felt a little embarrassed. "This isn't for eating, it's for scrubbing the back." Tinya was momentarily stunned. "For scrubbing the back?" He looked at her soft white skin. Then he looked at the corn cob in his hand. "This won't hurt you?" "No, it won't." Mugiwasi blew bubbles with her nose in the water, replying casually. Hearing her assurance, Tinya gently scrubbed her back with the corn cob. "Is this the right pressure? Does it hurt?" More or less." Mugiuxi's heart pounded. If another unmated male were helping a female bathe, he would surely be overjoyed. But this guy in front of me is different. He pushes me away while getting close. What is he really thinking? Tinya helped wash her back. Then he washed her head. After washing her head, he cleaned her limbs. He even gently scrubbed under her arms with his hand. Every part was washed with great care. Even her hooves weren't spared. Mugiuxi couldn't understand. Such intimate actions were clearly things only mates did. But why wouldn't he accept her? Tianya looked up and saw her staring at him with a confused expression. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "It's nothing. I just think you're really good to me, but you don't want to be my mate. I find that quite strange." Tianya pressed his lips together and remained silent. After helping her dry off, he finally spoke. "Once I finish my business, I'll tell you." Mugyuengsi saw that he didn't want to talk, so she didn't insist. "Go wait on the shore. I'll help you take off your clothes. Once you're a bit drier, I'll help you get dressed." Thanks, Mugyuengsi said. She sat quietly on the rock, watching the man seriously washing clothes in the water. A warm feeling started to rise in her heart. She knew. This meant she had feelings for him. But because, in her past life, she had been hurt by a despicable man, she had now learned to hold herself back to avoid getting too involved. At that moment, Tinja had already finished washing the clothes and approached her. He picked up the clean clothes and looked at her curiously. "How am I supposed to put this on? Doesn't it feel too hot to wear clothes in this season?" "No, it's not hot. The sun is too strong. Wear some clothes to cover yourself. That way, the sun won't touch your skin directly. It'll feel a little better." Tinja listened as she spoke and dressed her accordingly. At that moment, Mugyuengsi's gaze fell on the fish in the water. "Tinja, let's eat fish tonight." Tinja frowned with a look of displeasure. "Fish doesn't taste good. It has too many bones and a strong smell." "It'll be delicious. If you cook it with some seasonings, it won't smell so fishy." "Really? Then I'll try it." Without waiting for Mugyuengsi's response, he stepped into the pond and caught some large fish. On the way back, he also picked some wild herbs to remove the smell and add aroma, just as Mugyuengsi had suggested. After returning to the cave, he quickly killed the fish and lit a fire. Then, he placed the fish and seasonings on a stone and roasted them over high heat. Mugyuengsi stood by, guiding him. As the aroma began to fill the air, Tianya once again looked at Mugyuengsi in amazement. This pig didn't seem very big, but she had quite the appetite. They hadn't even finished eating the fish when heavy rain started to pour. Mugyuengsi felt extremely irritated. She had just bathed. If she had to run back through the rain, she would definitely get dirty again. But since she was already full and had nothing to do, the two of them staring at each other was a little awkward. Tianya noticed her mood. "I'll carry you back in my arms. That way, you won't get dirty." Mugyuengsi didn't know how to respond. A handsome guy carrying an 80-kilo pig? Just imagining the scene was hilarious. "No, I can run back on my own." Just as she finished speaking and was about to dash out, Tinya grabbed her by the tail. "I'll carry you." Tinya held her tightly and quickly walked toward her home. Mugyuengsi flailed in the rain and wind. "Good thing I'm not a spectator. Otherwise, I'd be laughing to death." The torrential rain lasted half a month. Once Mugyuengsi returned to the cave, she didn't go out again. Because of this, the two of them didn't see each other. However, the thing she least wanted to happen occurred. The prolonged rain caused flooding. Mugyuengsi followed her family as they climbed up the mountain. But being small, she struggled to keep up. She kept falling behind. Her father was injured, and her mother was being carried by Father Wolf. In this critical moment, Father Goat only had eyes for his mate. He didn't care about her at all. The flood behind them was extremely violent. Mugyuengsi ran with difficulty, panting, and with her heart pounding. She had barely made it halfway up the mountain, when suddenly, a thunderous roar echoed, accompanied by the trembling of the earth. Tinja, who arrived just in time, grabbed the small Mugyuengsi tightly in his arms. He quickly carried her to the top of the mountain, but, because he was holding her, his speed slowed considerably. Thorny vines on the mountain cut into him mercilessly. Blood flowed freely. But he still held on to her firmly. The mountain flood was already upon them. The raging waters seemed ready to swallow everything. In the face of such danger, he didn't choose to escape alone. Xiao Yu was both moved and filled with guilt. "Tianjia, let me go please, don't carry me as a burden." However, Tianjia did not respond to her words. He simply held her tighter. Clenching his teeth, he launched himself with all his strength toward the mountaintop with a deafening roar. A branch torn from its roots caused them both to fall into the swift current. Xiao Yu, swept away by the torrent, screamed heart-wrenchingly. Her eyes were filled with fear and despair. In the moment of crisis, Tianjia instinctively transformed into his beast form. Struggling, he emerged with difficulty to the surface, anxiously searching for Xiao Yu. When he saw her being ruthlessly dragged by the flood, his heart felt as if it was being squeezed by a screw. He quickly swam toward her. He wanted to catch her, but each time he was pushed back by the merciless current. At times, he almost drowned himself. He was in danger, let alone saving Mugyuengsi. Fortunately, Mugyuengsi was stopped by a large tree. She clung desperately to a branch, but her short limbs couldn't hold on. and several times she was on the verge of being dragged away. She couldn't help but think, was it because in her previous life she didn't value her life and sacrificed herself for a despicable man? Was that why the heavens were punishing her? She had clearly chosen to reincarnate as a cat, but by mistake, she ended up as a toothless pig. Her attack power was based only on charging, and she was the most inept pig. While she thought, Tianjia was swept toward the tree where she was. He reverted to his human form and protected her in his arms. "Mugyuxi, I'm so glad you're okay." His voice was full of relief and joy that couldn't be hidden. Little Yuxi felt his strong, powerful heartbeat. "Tianjia, you love me too, don't you? I like you. I liked you the first time I saw you." The feeling of almost losing and then finding the one he loved made Tianjia speak the truth. Mugyuesi, hearing this, felt both happy and confused. "Then why did you reject me before? There are some hyena men chasing me. I didn't want to bring danger to you." After saying this, he swore in his heart, "If I survive this time, next time I meet them, I will do everything to give you a future." "Little Yuxi, once we reach the shore, I'll stay by your side as you wait for the sun to rise. When the sun shines on you, we will be mates, okay?" After this crisis, he realized he didn't want to lose her. Over the past few days, she hadn't come looking for him. He couldn't sleep thinking about her. He wondered what she was doing each day. He wanted to go find her but was worried she might get sick if she got wet in the rain. He had been holding back his longing for her, waiting for the rain to stop before going to find her. He hadn't expected a flood. "It's okay, I promise. But how are we going to get to the shore?" She was really afraid they would die here before they even started. "Don't be afraid. When the water goes down, I'll swim us to the shore." But it wasn't long before Mugyuxi felt her head becoming heavy. Her body was also somewhat hot. She had been wet from the rain for so long, she thought she might have a fever. Tianjia looked at her, his body burning with worry that seemed endless. He looked up at the flow of the water. It was still somewhat fast. Swimming to the shore was still a challenge. But if they didn't get her to shelter from the rain soon, her condition would worsen. "Xiaohu, in a moment I'll carry you and swim to the shore. Hold on tight to me, don't let go, understood?" Mugyuxi looked at him with a dazed expression, forcing a slight smile. "Are you joking? You want to carry a pig? I don't even have hands. How am I supposed to hold on?" "You go by yourself, don't worry about me." Tianjia looked at her with great pain. If it had been another female, she would have been shouting to be carried to the shore. But Xiaoju asked him to go alone. How could he do that? "What nonsense are you saying? I'm not abandoning you." He gently embraced her to his chest. Without hesitation, he jumped into the murky and agitated river current. He had to get her to a safe place. After they had covered more than half the distance, Tianjia felt his arms stiffening from the continuous effort. Sweat was still dripping from his forehead, but he had no intention of slowing down. Only 200 meters from the riverbank, but he used all his strength. He swam until it was almost dark before reaching the shore. As soon as he reached the shore, he carefully placed her to one side. Exhausted, he lay down on the ground without moving. After resting for a moment, he lifted her again, and they walked along the muddy path. Finally, they found a cave to rest in before nightfall. The exhausted Tianjia transformed into his animal form. Holding Xiaohu, they slept together. "After the rain stops, I'll take you to see the vet." When dawn broke, Muhu 11 was still asleep. Tianjia realized her temperature had dropped considerably. His heart, which had been worried all night, felt a little more at ease. When Muhu 11 woke up, it was already noon. She realized she was in Tianjia's arms. Her heart felt deeply moved. At that moment, the river was still flowing forcefully. He had actually not abandoned her. This made her affection for him grow even more. She couldn't help but move closer to him, in front of his enormous figure. She felt like a much smaller version of herself. She seemed like a small, sweet wife. As she felt his movements, Tianjia suddenly opened his eyes. Seeing that she was awake, he couldn't help but feel a bit excited. "It's good, Xiaohu. You finally woke up. How do you feel now? Do you want to go to the nearby village to see a vet? You should be fine now. I estimate you'll recover soon." Mugyuxi stretched lazily. She took some bland food from her space. Tianjia looked at her, stunned. Though he listened to her explanation, he still felt that it was incredible. When he woke up in the morning, he thought about going out to find food and wait for her to wake up. But he didn't feel safe leaving her alone here. Besides, she was sick. "Eat, quickly. You haven't eaten since last night, right? Are you hungry?" Seeing the sudden appearance of a lot of food, Tianjia felt a bit uncomfortable. "Xiaohu, this makes me seem useless." "Don't say that. You risked everything to save me. I'm just giving you a little food. This small kindness can't be repaid." Also, not all males treat females this way. Eat, quickly. Upon hearing this, Tianjia stood up. He gave her a deep kiss on the forehead. Mugyugi was a bit surprised. He really kissed her. A big, black, wild boar. Kissing a small white pig. My God, this image is incredible. Mugyuusi's shy face turned red. You kissed me, so you must take responsibility for me. Even if my human form isn't pretty in the future, you can't abandon me. Don't worry. No matter how you look in the future, I'll always believe in you. Little Yu felt extremely happy upon hearing this. She finally had a mate. After eating their fill, they continued on their way. Since they had been dragged so far by the flood, they could only hurry toward the Black Pig tribe along the river. But they hadn't walked much when they were stopped by some beastly hyenas. They looked at Tianjia with fierce expressions. When they looked at Mugyuxi, their eyes were filled with greed. Mugyuxi was extremely terrified. They had signs of wild and abandoned beasts who had committed crimes. Pig beast, where do you think you're going this time? Do you dare rescue the female from our leader's hands? We'll see how you protect this female this time. However, this female is really peculiar. A white sow, in beast form, still dressed. She really looks sweet and appetizing. Tianjia felt Mugyuxi's fear. His gaze, sharp as arrows, turned toward the uneasy hyenas. Don't be afraid, I'll protect you. The leader of the hyenas scoffed. He can barely protect himself. You still want to protect others? Kill him, and this female will be ours. After the leader of the hyenas gave the order, the several hyenas rushed in like a pack of hungry wolves. They pounced fiercely on Tianjia. Tianjia fought with all his strength. He used his sharp fangs to strike them violently, but there were too many of them. He still had to protect Mugyuxi. This made his situation a little difficult. Little Hugh, wait, I'll stop them. You just run. Run always upward. That way you'll go back home. Mugyu 11 understood in her heart. She knew she would only become a burden to Tianjia here. Then, you must survive and come back to find me. After dropping a few reluctant words, little Hugh began running desperately backward. You want to run? It's not that easy. The beastly hyena saw her escape and chased after her directly. Tianjia jumped. He crushed the hyena beast that was trying to chase Mugyuxi 11 under his body. And he killed it with his fangs. Mugyu 11 ran with all her might forward. She didn't dare to look back. With a plop, that was the sound of something falling into the water. Her heart raced, praying it wasn't Tianjia who fell. After hearing several plopping sounds, she began to slow down and quickly turned around. She only saw a black shadow floating on the water's surface. Above it was a bright red blood color. Soon, it was dragged away by the fast-moving river. The several hyena beasts were also dragged in the same way. Seeing that Tianjia was sinking in the water, he still didn't fight. Mugyuxi 11's heart suddenly stopped for a moment. Tianjia, she said with a trembling voice, running quickly toward him. However, after running a good distance, she failed to see Tianjia rise to the surface. She desperately looked at the wide river. She didn't know where to go to search for him. In this world, besides her parents, the only person who had treated her well and was willing to protect her was no longer here. Tianjia, Tianjia. She looked at the river's surface and broke down in tears, continuously calling Tianjia's name, hoping he could hear her. She searched along the river. She cried for a long time and shouted for a long time. But still, she didn't see Tianjia's figure. At that moment, the sky began to darken again, signaling the arrival of a heavy rain. She knew very well that the chances of Tianjia surviving were minimal. She stared blankly at the river's surface. In this beastly world where killing was common, she was a pig beast with almost no attack power. She was so weak she couldn't be weaker. She would even die if separated from the male. Tears mixed with the rain sliding down her cheek. A deep sense of helplessness took over her. She sat by the riverbank, crying out loud. She didn't know if she was crying for her fate, or because Tianjia would never return. He was just a pig. Was it really worth crying this much? A deep male voice came from behind her. She turned around, frightened. She only saw a huge white tiger. It was very far from her. He looked at her with disdain. In his blue eyes there was nothing but disdain and mockery. Look at this. Mujubo became a little angry. Although the other person was a fierce tiger, she couldn't help but shout at him angrily. It's not the person you care about who's dead. Of course, you can speak ironically from over there. Chuzuan let out a cold laugh. If he's dead, it's because he lacks skills. What's there to cry about? You've been in this beast world for so long. You should have adapted to the law of the jungle. If a companion dies, just look for others. If you care about everyone so much, the one who suffers is only you. Mugiwon looked at the person in front of her in disbelief. This way of life is really clear and ruthless. Wait, how does he know you've been in this beast world for such a long time? Mugiwon looked at the other person with an alert expression. Who are you? Realizing that she had said something inappropriate, Chuzuan quickly defended himself. You look like you've grown up, but that doesn't mean you've been in this beast world for a long time. A pig is a pig. Do you really have to ask such a simple question? Mugiwon held back her tears. She looked him up and down curiously. In this beast world, pigs aren't used as a metaphor for insults, right? Also, pigs here aren't so dumb. She admits she's dumb. But that doesn't mean all pig beasts are like that. Xiaohu couldn't help but frown. Who are you, really? It's none of your business. Chuzuan refused bluntly. Mugiwon saw that he wasn't willing to talk and didn't feel like asking more questions. She looked upstream and downstream. She didn't know whether she should search for Tenja, whose life or death was uncertain, or go back to the tribe. Now she was alone in the field. Without the protection of the tribe and Tenja, she could become food for a beast at any moment. Finally, she stood up and walked upstream. If Tenja was still alive, he would surely come back to look for her. And she, unprotected, dared to search for him. That was self-destructive behavior. After all, returning to the tribe was already extremely dangerous, let alone going to search for someone. Xiaohu made a secret resolution. Once she entered heat, she would look for several companions. Not only could they protect her, but they could also help each other in times of danger. Although the tiger's words were harsh, reality was like this. Still, she hoped Tenja would be her first. She hoped he would return before she entered heat. Zhuzuan looked at the sad Xiaohu. Slowly, he followed her. I can't believe it. Now it turns out you can even look at a pig. Muki stopped upon hearing this. What does she mean by that? Does the tiger know she was once human? Who are you really? What do you know? In reality, I'm a pig now. What right do I have to despise others? I'm not looking for a pig. Should I be looking for you? A tiger? I like you. I looked for you, so accept being my partner. Chuzuan stepped back repeatedly upon hearing this. No, I couldn't look at a pig like you. Mugiwon rolled her eyes. You're not even a beast. Thinking you're so noble. Chuzuan lifted his head arrogantly. I'm a tiger, so I'm nobler than you. Mugiwon shot him a fierce glare. Does this beast tiger have some grudge against her? Why, as soon as they see each other, does he keep mocking her? After living in this beast world for over 10 years, she had only seen beast tigers. She had never seen human tigers. She didn't even know him. Xiaoyu took advantage of the fact that males in this beast world couldn't harass females. So, in a fit of impulse, she charged directly with her head at the beast tiger's belly. After succeeding, she ran off without hesitation. The sudden impact made Chuzuan let out a muffled groan. He hadn't expected this pig to dare bump into him. Watching her little short legs running frantically made him want to laugh. Suddenly, she seemed quite adorable. Shuksuan startled himself. In fact, he thought his pig appearance was quite cute. Could it be because he had been single for so long? Now, he even found pigs attractive. Stupid pig, stay still! He shouted angrily and began to chase her. Then, he pounced on her and crushed her. Mu-Yu11 instinctively struggled side to side. Her little pig legs were kicking. Shuksuan was pressing her with his tiger paw, complaining, "Why are you harder to handle than a pig at New Year?" Mu-11 was stunned. Struggling, she shouted angrily, "Right now I'm a damn pig! Let me go already! I won't do it again! Do you dare bump into me? Apologize immediately!" The little pig pouted. "Sorry, I was wrong." Chuzuan was a bit surprised upon hearing this. He became cowardly quite quickly. Wasn't she persistent just a moment ago? Mugyu once blushed and scolded him angrily. "Get up quickly, you're crushing me. Don't even look at how much you weigh." Chuzuan got up awkwardly. If she hadn't been moving uncontrollably, he wouldn't have crushed the ground with his body. Mugyu once looked at the tiger in front of her, behaving strangely. "You came from the land too. Do you know me?" "I'm not interested in getting to know you. You're so stupid it's scary." Chuzuan threw a glance at her and swam away. Xiaoju snorted in disdain. She continued on her way with pig steps. But she didn't walk much. Suddenly, she felt her body weaken. Her vision blurred, and she collapsed to the ground, unconscious. "Hey, can you make this short-legged pig walk a little faster?" Chuzuan, not hearing anything behind him, couldn't help but hurry her up when he saw she wasn't responding. He looked back and realized she was lying over 50 meters away from him. "Oh no, don't die, please." Frightened, he quickly ran to her. He touched her forehead, which was dangerously hot. He quickly transformed into human form and lifted her, searching for the nearest cave. His expression was so dark it could scare anyone. If someone saw me hugging a pig, they'd definitely laugh at me. If Mugiwon woke up at that moment, she would surely know who he was just by seeing him. When he reached the cave, Chuzuan carefully placed her on the ground. Then, he transformed back into animal form to give her warmth. There were no tribes nearby. He could only wait for the rain to stop, to take her to a veterinarian. Chuzuan sighed, feeling helpless. Taking care of someone so weak was truly bad luck. He looked down at the cold, dying Binchin in his arms. She lay on the ground as if she had accepted her fate. If someone had to be blamed, it was himself for being careless at that moment. Night gradually fell. Mugiwon felt uncomfortable in Chuzuan's arms. Genja, where are you?" Chuzuan looked at the female crying in his arms. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He wished he could push her away immediately. Lying in his arms, talking about other males. He was really going to lose his mind. Did she really think him a fool? At that moment, the howls of wolves broke the silence outside the cave. Chuzuan frowned slightly. He stood up slowly and exited the cave. A group of strange beasts who didn't know what awaited them dared to provoke him at the entrance of his cave. They were really asking for their own death. Around the cave entrance were several wolf beasts. Their strength ranged from the 1st to the 5th level. The only level 6 was the leader of that group of beasts. Chuzuan smiled mischievously. He was still worried about not having a veterinarian to examine Muhu 11. Now this group of crystal core beasts had shown up at his door to prevent the sound of the fight from disturbing Muhu 11. He didn't use the tiger's roar that could intimidate enemies. Instead, he rushed straight into the rain and began to fight with the wolf pack. His agile figure moved among the wolves. Every time he moved his tiger paw, it carried with it incomparable strength. Although the wolf pack was numerous, their power was impressive. Every attack struck precisely at the vulnerable points of the pack, making them howl in pain and fall to the ground. The wolf pack felt Chuzuan's power. They started to retreat slowly. They were no longer as fierce as before, but Chuzuan didn't give them a chance to breathe. As the lightning crossed the night sky, the last wolf fell at Chuzuan's feet. He took all their crystal cores. Then, he turned around and walked back to the cave. At that moment, Xiao Yu was still muttering confusedly about Tianjia. This left Chuzuan extremely frustrated. Despite the noise outside, he couldn't wake her up. It turns out, she's a pig. She sleeps like a dead pig. This phrase couldn't be truer. He took out the crystal core he had just dug up. He fed her a level 3 yellow core. He looked at the level 6 blue crystal core in his hand, wondering whether to give it to her. After all, the higher the level of the crystal core, the better it is for the body, the more it's consumed. It can also help maintain youth. If she eats it, she will become healthier. He won't have to protect her for much longer. Chuzuan thought and felt it wasn't worth it. So he kept the level 6 crystal core, and Xiao Yu started to recover after eating the core. She, who had stopped complaining, fell deeply asleep in Chuzuan's arms. But at midnight, Xiao Yu began to complain again. Chuzuan frowned. He gave her another level 3 crystal core. The next morning, Chuzuan was awakened by a sweet aroma. When he opened his eyes, he was instantly stunned. The little pig in his arms had turned into a beautiful woman with white hair and red lips. Her soft, delicate skin was white with a hint of blush. Especially those pink lips that seemed irresistible. He couldn't help but admire her sweetness. Since her animal form clothes didn't fit well, some parts of the landscape were vaguely visible, making his imagination run wild. Chuzuan stared, open-mouthed. Not knowing why, he reached out. Mugyu 11, confused, opened her eyes. Upon feeling something strange, she looked down. Suddenly, a sharp scream echoed. Instinctively, she raised her hand and slapped Chuzuan's beautiful face. Chuzuan was startled by her scream. He quickly withdrew his hand. Then, he quickly transformed into his animal form and stood guard at the cave. He didn't forget to ask her with concern what was happening. When he saw there was no danger outside the cave, he murmured in confusion. "I didn't find any danger." Then he turned around. He saw Zhao Jiu with her eyes full of tears. She glared at him furiously, although she was very angry at that moment. Her appearance wasn't threatening at all. Instead, it made him want to hug her and torment her. Mugyu 11 saw him staring at her. She grabbed a handful of herbs and threw them at him. "After all, you also came from the land. Is this how someone educated behaves?" Chuzuan lowered his head and turned away sadly. He said nothing. Who can tell him why a pig transforms into human form? Can it be so beautiful? Is this how a pig should look? That curvy body? Shouldn't it have wide hips, a thick waist, and a tiger's back? Mugyuan pulled at her ill-fitting clothes. She directly turned them into a top and a short skirt. She was a little distressed. Why transform just now? This is not a good sign. Xiaoju stood up and was about to leave. A warm current flowed from underneath her. She also fell to her knees on the ground with a thud. Her hands were pressed against the ground. She was very embarrassed. She forgot that the transformation also came with heat. Chuzuan heard the sound. He quickly transformed into human form and helped her stand up. "What's wrong with you? Are you okay?" At that moment, Mugyuan could clearly see Chuzuan's face. She extended her hand and grabbed his white hair tightly. "Is it you, Chuzuan?" Chuzuan felt a tightness in his heart. "It's over! It's over!" How did she transform into a human right in front of her? She was holding onto his scalp, which hurt from the pull. "It hurts, it hurts, it hurts, let me go. I didn't do it on purpose. Am I not being punished too?" "What do I care about your punishment? You were the one who didn't take things seriously. You made me turn into a pig. And still, a little pig with no attack power. In this dangerous world of beasts, I live every day with my heart in my throat. How will you compensate me? Give me back my feline." Mugyuan shook her hair with fury, venting her anger and frustration from all these years. "If I hadn't made a mistake, I wouldn't have had to live like this. So difficult. I was wrong. I truly was wrong. The river god punishes me so that I protect you for life. Isn't that enough? Who cares about your protection? If I were a tiger myself, would I still need your protection?" Chuzuan watched the little woman moving in front of him. He stopped fighting. His eyes stared at her intently. In the next second, 2 threads of deep red floated from his nose. Mugyuan was a bit surprised to see he was bleeding from his nose. She followed his gaze to herself. As she leaned over, she saw it unintentionally. Immediately, her face flushed. She slapped him without thinking. "I'm angry, very angry. Can you, please, respect me? You're a damn scoundrel." Chuzuan suddenly sat down on the ground. He put his hand to his nose to clean it. "It's because you're on your period. That smell is too tempting. I couldn't resist." Xiao Hu, fists clenched, took a deep breath. The males in the beast world go crazy when they encounter females in heat. They definitely go crazy. They can't resist wanting to get close to the other person. You can't blame him for that. But thinking that he made her turn into a pig, he can't swallow this resentment. She silently pulled out an apple and began eating. She hadn't eaten anything since yesterday. Her stomach was empty from hunger. As she turned, Chuzuan saw her eating the apple. Though curious about where she got it from, he didn't dare ask. "Are you on your period now? I'll go hunt nearby and bring you some meat." With that, he transformed and ran off. Mugyuan didn't respond. She didn't need him to take care of her. He could do whatever he wanted. Not much time passed. Chuzuan returned with a wolf in his mouth. "Eat quickly. You need to replenish your energy. Eating meat will make you feel better." Mugyuan looked at him in disbelief. "At least, you were once human. How did you manage to get over eating raw meat?" Chuzuan made a casual gesture with his hand. "When I was on the ground, I was also a white tiger. I don't remember being human before. I only remember that after I died." "All right. Then eat. I can't eat." After saying that, she continued eating the apple in her hand. Chuzuan saw she didn't want to eat, so he went out to find dry firewood to make a fire. Then, silently, he started roasting the meat. After giving her the roasted meat, he went to clean the wolf's skin to make clothes. Mugyuan silently ate the meat. After eating enough, she didn't dare move, because she feared her menstruation would get out of control. During this time, she couldn't return to her animal form. When it's over, she would be able to switch freely between her animal and human forms. But in the days after her period, beasts feel the need to curl up. It's a really embarrassing question. Now, who no longer knows if they're alive or dead? Where could I find a male to solve this problem? Mugyuan lay melancholically on a pile of grass. A beast is still a beast. even though it can become human. There are some wild things that can't be changed. When Chuzuan returned, he was wearing a beast skin skirt. It must have been freshly tanned. Mugiwon sat up and looked at him. "Hey, Tiger Beast, will you come with me to look for someone?" Chuzuan answered without thinking. "I'm not going. I'm only here to protect you. I don't help you find someone. Also, my name is Chuzuan." Aokyu frowned when she heard that. "Tien is already a level 6 beastman. He can protect me once I find him. You won't have to protect me anymore. This isn't right. It doesn't matter how many companions you look for. I will always stay by your side. I don't have to go looking for someone whose life or whereabouts are unknown. You forgot about that pig. Once your heat is over, I'll take you back to your tribe. By then, you'll have several more companions. Being injured and dragged by the flood, there's almost no chance of survival. You should accept reality. Don't keep living so naively in love." Hearing this, Mugiwon lowered her head, somewhat discouraged. Is Tien really gone? Thinking about this, her tears began to fall uncontrollably. In my past life, I liked someone, and it turned out that the other person was unfaithful. This time, I like someone, and it turns out the other person died, protecting me. She's a lonely star, buh. Chuzuan looked at her with the appearance of a pear blossom soaked in rain. His heart felt as though a large stone was crushing it, unable to breathe. "Stop crying. Can't I take you to look for him?" Mugiwon shuddered when she heard his shout. "Why are you so fierce? I'm crying because maybe he's dead. I'm not crying to make you take me to look for him." At this moment, Chuzuan was both annoyed and embarrassed. He didn't know how to comfort her. "Wasn't it enough that you cried all day yesterday? Is it worth it for a pig?" Upon hearing this, Mugiwon didn't even feel like crying anymore. Though Tien is a pig, there's no doubt. But it always seems like this Chuzuan is insulting us. So she reached out and grabbed his neck, shaking him forcefully. "Give me back my feline. Who did this to me? Even if I were reborn as a domestic pig on the ground, I wouldn't have to live this hard. At least someone would feed me every day. If I ate enough, I could sleep. But now, what? Who made me depend on the male to live? It's you. It's you who made me suffer so much." Chuzuan looked at the person clinging to him. A slight smile appeared on his face. His Adam's apple stood out as he swallowed. He swallowed his saliva. He didn't say a word. Mugiwon, who was venting, saw his indifference. She lifted her head in confusion. In the end, she saw that he had a look of enjoyment. She almost got so angry she felt like vomiting blood. "It's really a big joke. Wait a moment. Wait until I find a high-level partner, then I'll let you kill him. If that doesn't work, I'll find several. I'll let them beat you up in a group." However, Chuzuan simply waved his hand disdainfully. "Then, probably your wish won't come true. In this area, I haven't seen anyone more powerful than me. Don't get too happy too soon. When the time comes, I'll look for 10 partners. I don't think I can't beat you. Please, get clear. This area is full of herbivorous beasts. The strongest ones only have between 4 and 5 levels. Those at level 6 are already old." Although what he says is true, Zhao Hu is still unconvinced. "Then I'll look for an elephant beast to crush you." Upon hearing this, Chuzuan began to laugh heartily. "With your size, you wouldn't even be able to run under its feet. It probably wouldn't even see you. You dare to have that idea. You really make me laugh to death." Haha. At Chuzuan's relentless mockery, Xiao Hu looked at him furiously. This person specializes in tormenting her, doesn't he? She's only seen him for 2 days, and he's already almost made her die of anger. She pulled an apple out of space and threw it with all her might at him, but it was firmly caught by Chuzuan. And he mockingly said, "Thank you." He walked toward her with a smile, spread the freshly tanned beast skin over the pile of grass. "Come sit. With the beast skin, you'll feel more comfortable." Mugiwon gave a light snort. She turned her head, unwilling to pay attention to him. He's handsome, but he has a mouth that invites a slap. Chuzuan, seeing that she wasn't paying attention to him, didn't get angry. He sat on the beast skin, eating the apple he had in his hand. "What treasure did the river god give you as compensation? Space? Or a system? Look, this apple is big and sweet. It wouldn't be a farming space, right?" "That makes sense. It's suitable for you, the vegetarian orcs. Then, your space has a preservation function. I've cleaned the external beasts and stored them in your space. Next time you want to eat, just take them out and cook them." "Hehe, give me another apple. It's been a while since I ate such delicious apples." Mugiwon saw him talking non-stop. In her heart, she really admired him. Obviously, his animal form is a fierce, big tiger. She didn't expect him to be a chatterbox in personality. She turned around and examined him carefully. You talk a lot. You don't have any of the majesty a tiger should have. Chuzuan slowly bit the apple. His gaze was directed towards the horizon. Back when he was human, he was mute. When he was a tiger, he couldn't speak like a human. Now, he's both human and tiger. Of course, he should talk a little more. Also, in these 6 years, I've been looking to improve and find you. I haven't had time to talk nonsense with others. Now that I've found you, I can live a somewhat more relaxed life. Mugiwon heard him mention his past. Suddenly, she became curious about things from the underworld. When you worked for the river god, didn't anyone talk to you? I've only been here for 2 years. Every day is the same, talking about almost the same things. I'm dying of boredom. Then, how is it that you said you searched for me for 6 years? Was it a punishment from the river god for you? Upon hearing her ask this, Chuzuan had no intention of hiding the truth. When the river god found you, he used the gene of this beast world to create a new body for me, based on my original white tiger appearance. They made me a new body, allowing me to ascend while searching for you. In 6 years, I went from level 0 to level 7. Am I not impressive enough? Saying this, Chuzuan looked at her with pride. It seemed like he needed Mugiwon to admire him a bit to feel good. However, Mugiwon simply rolled her eyes. Although it's true that it's impressive, she simply didn't want to admit it. How much do you boast? By the way, how did you recognize me at a glance? Chuzuan didn't care that she rolled her eyes. He wasn't going to argue with a pig. The river god cast a spell on me. I see that the one who shines is you. Mugiwon was excited when she heard this. Shining. Does that mean I am sacred in your eyes? Chuzuan looked at her as if she were an idiot. If you see a pig shining, would you think it's sacred? Then he couldn't help but give her a look of contempt. You're really a foolish pig. You live and die for men in this life and the next. Mugyuxi felt embarrassed. People have such poisonous tongues. You can't expect them to say anything good. Chuzuan saw that she didn't say anything. The atmosphere immediately became uncomfortable and ambiguous. And the smell on her. It was really hard for him to resist. You haven't told me yet. If your space can preserve things, right? If it's possible, I'll take care of the dead exotic beasts and put them in your space. It's still summer. If you leave them too long, they'll spoil. What strange animals. Mugyu 11 looked at him with some doubt. Last night, a group of strange beasts surrounded our cave. I went out and killed them all. You didn't hear anything at all. You're still sleeping so deeply. It's true, now you're a pig. You were born to sleep. I can't blame you for that. If it can preserve, go handle it quickly. Mugyu 11 was speechless. Although yes, now I'm a pig. But I always feel that out of every 3 things he says, 2 are to insult me. Chuzuan replied and ran out. He looked as though a ghost was chasing him. Chuzuan smiled with resignation after running out. This body is really hard to control. He took his time handling the strange beast outside. Then, he made some clothes for Mugyu 11, seeing how she was. I guess there's no clothing in her space either. He'll have to be alone with her these days. If he doesn't cover her figure, he fears not being able to control himself. Chuzuan returned to the cave late in the afternoon. He found that Mugiwon was already lying on the beast's skin, deeply asleep. He gently moved the beast's skin aside. Then, he went out to start a fire to roast meat. When Mugiwon woke up, she immediately felt something sticky underneath her. She looked at the beast's skin that Chuzuan had cleaned. She called out from inside the cave. Chuzuan, I'll use one of your beast skins. In a couple of days, I'll wash it and return it to you. Chuzuan heard her calling his name. A different feeling surged in his heart. He couldn't help but clear his throat and answered from inside. Take it, it's for you anyway. His voice had a tone of laughter. It also carried a hint of indulgence. Xiao Jiao obediently sat down after putting on the beast's skin. Then she took a banana out of her space and started eating it. Chuzuan entered after roasting meat and saw her eating a banana. Somewhat annoyed, he approached and took the banana from her hand. I'm roasting meat outside. Are you really eating a banana here? Did you think I wouldn't feed you once it's roasted? Or do you think a banana is better than meat? You're only responsible for protecting me. You don't have to handle my daily life, right? We're not relatives. I'm using your things and eating your food. I owe you too much. If you make me angry in the future, I'll have my males beat you. I'm afraid of feeling guilty. Chuzuan was furious when he heard that. You really surprise me. You're always thinking of how to hit me. You're just a weak pig. Only a blind, high-ranking orc would take an interest in you. Moreover, with the vegetarian orcs in this area, do you think they could beat me? And you still want to hit me? You're dreaming. Hurry up and eat. He shoved the roasted meat into Mugyuxi's hand. He turned around, furious, and left, seeing the banana in her hand. He was so angry that he took a bite of it. Mugyuxi saw him cursing there. She bit into the piece of meat she had in her hand, and she swore in her heart, "In the future, I won't hesitate to hit him, and in the future, somehow, I have to find a husband better than him." After Zhao Hu had eaten enough, she slowly got up and walked outside the cave, but she saw Zhu Zuan lying motionless in beast form, trembling from the cold. He seemed to be thinking about something. Zhu Zuan saw her leave and asked in a bad mood, "Where are you going?" "To relieve urgent needs." Muxi Nuxi didn't bother to answer him. She replied in a bad tone. Then, she headed towards a bush. Zhu Zuan saw her barefoot and wanted to say something, but stopped. Concerned, he shouted at her back, "Don't go too far." Muxi Nuxi didn't answer him. After using the bathroom, she prepared to go back. She didn't know if it was from the heavy flow. She hadn't walked a few steps before suddenly feeling her hands and feet cold and her legs weak. She leaned against a tree, exhausted. Chu Xuan saw that she hadn't returned after such a long time. He immediately got up to look for her. Upon seeing her pale face, he felt immediate confusion. He quickly shifted to human form and embraced her. "Are you okay?" "I'm very tired," Mugyuxi replied weakly. She obediently leaned into his arms. Chu Xuan felt an indescribable discomfort seeing this. "If you're tired, sleep. I'll take you back." After returning to the cave, Chu Xuan first changed her into a clean beast skin so she could lie down. Then he gave her a level 4 core. He then collected the beast skin he had just changed and went to the river to clean it. At that moment, in the place where Mugyuxi had just gone to the bathroom, there was an orc. He measured the blood puddle on the ground. A mad smile appeared on his face. "It's a female in heat. Haha, how nice." With that, he transformed into a huge crocodile. Following the scent trail of Mugyuxi, he found his way to the cave. When he saw a beautiful female lying inside, the crocodile couldn't resist and licked his lips. He didn't expect this beast to be so beautiful. However, little Mugyuxi was sleeping. She kept calling Tianya's name, unaware that danger was approaching. Licking her, the crocodile beast, Mugyuxi, a bit uncomfortable, opened her eyes, stunned. She was instantly scared when she saw the monster in front of her. She screamed, stumbling backward. But in the eyes of the crocodile, there was a flash of excitement. He slowly approached her. "Little female, your scent in heat is very pleasant. It's so strong that I can hardly control my instincts. Mate with me. I'll treat you well, I swear." In front of this sudden crocodile beast, Mugyuxi felt unprecedented panic. "Chu Xuan," she screamed in terror, calling Chu Xuan's name. But when she looked around, she realized Chu Xuan wasn't there. Her heart immediately filled with despair. She couldn't help but remember the one who had risked his life to protect her. Now she didn't know if he was alive or dead. Her tears began to fall uncontrollably. Tianya, singing like a rooster. Hearing Muxi scream, Chu Xuan's heart flipped. He quickly ran to the cave entrance. When he finally reached the entrance of the cave, he heard Muxi calling someone else. An inexplicable anger surged in his heart. He clenched his fists tightly. He felt an unprecedented envy and rage. In this critical life-or-death moment, she was still hoping that that pig would come back to save her. Chu Xuan burst into the cave. Then he saw the crocodile beast approaching Muxi lasciviously. That scene immediately made him angry. He instantly transformed into beast form. Without hesitation, he opened his mouth. His sharp teeth bit hard into the crocodile's tail. Ignoring the crocodile beast's terrified struggles, he dragged it out of the cave as if it were an insignificant toy. His movements were quick and decisive. At that moment, all he wanted was to quickly get rid of the thing that was scaring her. He continued biting and dragging, unleashing all his anger on the crocodile beast. After killing it, he quickly returned to the cave. He hugged her tightly to his chest, pulling her from the corner where she had been curled up. "Don't be afraid, I've killed it. It's all right." Mugyuxi curled up in Chu Xuan's arms. Tears kept falling uncontrollably. "I want to go back to the tribe." Chu Xuan looked at her tear-streaked face and felt deeply sorry. Paratace. "I'll take you back tomorrow." He gently raised his hand to wipe away her tears. "That's enough. You cry like a little cat." An ambiguous gesture made Mugyuxi blush and look away. "I wish I were really a cat. Not so vulnerable like now. Without any means of defense when danger comes." Chuzuan felt a little embarrassed hearing that. If he hadn't made a mistake in the beginning, she should be living better, right? "I'm sorry. I'll always be by your side, protecting you. I won't let you face these things again." Mugyuxi bit her lip and said nothing. When she finds a stronger companion, she won't need him anymore. And he always looks down on her. Surely he doesn't like her either. Then let him go look for his own tigress. Chuzuan looked at her in silence. Thinking that she should have been scared, he silently got up, changed her into animal skin, and spoke gently. "Come and rest. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here with you." Looking at Chuzuan, who was carefully taking care of her, Muju felt a little disturbed. If it weren't for him making it clear that he wouldn't look at a pig, she would have thought he liked her. Maybe he feared that if she died, he wouldn't fulfill his task. Perhaps he would be punished again by the river god. Thinking of this, Xiaohu looked at him curiously. "Chuzuan, if I die under your protection, will the river god punish you again?" Upon hearing her question, Chuzuan hesitated. "Yes, so live well. Enjoy this life. My task will be complete." Mugyuxi understood, but she always had him alone by her side. She also felt a bit guilty. "Well, after you take me back to the tribe, you should also find a companion. That way, you won't feel so lonely." Chuzuan saw that she wanted him to find a companion. His mood suddenly became a bit irritated. "Do you want me to take care of pigs or sheep? Or better yet, should I go get a cow?" "You don't need to worry about my business. You can also go find my tigress. Being back in the tribe will be much safer. Then, you won't have to take care of me every day." Chuzuan gave her an irritated look. "Come sleep and stop worrying for no reason. With your silly appearance, it's hard to say if any males will be willing. By then, maybe you won't have anyone. After all, I'll have to take care of you for the rest of my life." Mugyuxi laughed at his comment, although she was upset. "Please, I'm a female. Is this a beast world? Will I be left without a mate? By then, I'll find 10 companions to annoy you." Chuzuan sneered. "What's the point of getting a bunch of trash? It's not enough to get knocked out in a single blow." Xiaoyu really didn't feel like arguing with him anymore. There are so few females in this beast world. Won't anyone want her? What nonsense is this? Instead, he's not so sure that someone will want her. When Chuzuan heard her say she wanted to find 10 companions, his mood inexplicably soured. He suddenly felt an urge to not want her to find anyone. No, wait, what does it matter to him if she finds a mate or not? Anyway, he just has to make sure she's safe. Chuzuan silently got up after seeing her fall asleep. He carefully walked outside the cave. He ignored the crocodile beast he had killed earlier. He spent the night making her a pair of shoes. He also prepared clothes that would fit her well. After finishing everything, he returned to her side and lay back down. His gaze settled on her serene face as she slept. Her face was youthful, pure, and had a touch of softness. Looking at her sleeping face, he smiled faintly. In his heart, he couldn't help but feel nostalgic. This silly pig looks quite good. Looking, she couldn't help but swallow. She sniffed the hormones emanating from his body. Irritated, she stood up and left. She knew that if she stayed here any longer, she might lose control of her instincts. Chuzuan, in beast form, was lying outside the cave. The cool night breeze slowly eased his burning sensation. The next day, when Mugyu woke up, Chuzuan had already roasted some meat and was waiting there. He hadn't changed out of his beast skin the entire night. The bloodstains beneath it had already dyed the beast skin red. Taking advantage of Chuzuan's absence, she quickly changed out of the beast skin. She thought about putting the skin she had changed out of together with the one she had swapped before, but discovered that those skins were gone. She looked around but found nothing. She wondered if Chuzuan had thrown them away or if he had taken them to wash. A man washing something like that for me? How embarrassing. Thinking about this made her feel really uncomfortable. When she saw a pair of crocodile leather shoes and a new set of clothes, she was even more surprised. She couldn't help but think that Chuzuan was too kind. Aside from having a loose tongue, he really is a good man. On Earth, how many women would wish for him? Hearing a noise, Chuzuan entered with roasted meat. "Are you sure you want to go back today? Your heat isn't over yet. On the way, you might attract strange or abandoned beasts." Upon hearing his words, Mugyuki bit her lip, unsure of what to do. It seemed that, for now, staying in the cave was the safest option. However, now her tribe wasn't necessarily safe either. Floods had reached many places. A number of human beasts had descended from upstream. The example from last night was the crocodile beast. In a food shortage situation, they would all become very fierce. What kind of large beasts, discarded beasts, and cold human beasts? And there were also higher-level exotic beasts. It was expected that many would emerge. I advise you to stay here until your heat ends. Otherwise, your scent will attract a bunch of beastmen with bad intentions. When I fight alone, I won't be able to protect you. Upon hearing about the crocodile beast from last night, Mugiuxi immediately became a little anxious and looked up at Chusuan. His serious expression left her a bit stunned. It turns out that when he doesn't speak or becomes serious, he still looks quite imposing and dominant. He hasn't lost the air of a tiger. She lowered her gaze. Then I'll wait for my heat to finish before leaving. Just then, Mugiu looked at Chusuan. Chusuan felt a slight tremor in his chest. Right then, he saw admiration in her eyes. When a woman looks at a man like that, it really satisfies a man's pride. He even felt a bit intoxicated. The corner of his mouth slightly lifted. Unconsciously, he raised his hand and gently patted her head with a fond expression. What's this? The sudden action left Mugiuxi a bit confused. Chusuan was surprised and quickly withdrew his hand, offering an awkward explanation. It's nothing. You had some grass in your hair. I just removed it. He then picked up the beast skin she had changed out of. Eat. I'll go wash the beast skin. With that, he quickly left the cave. After Mugiuxi finished eating the roasted meat in her hands, she ate some fruit as well. Finally, she lay on the beast skin, waiting for Chusuan to return. But it wasn't long before she felt the urge to go to the bathroom. She stood up and put on the shoes Chusuan had made for her. Slowly, she walked outside. This time, she didn't walk too far. She was afraid her weak legs might give out, and she wouldn't be able to return. Plus, Chusuan wasn't here. When Chusuan returned after washing the skins, he didn't see her in the cave. He immediately became alarmed. He ran out, following her scent as he searched for her. He hadn't run far. Then he saw Mugiuxi approaching slowly. He rushed over anxiously, picked her up in his arms, and spoke with slight anger. When I'm not around, it's better if you don't go out alone. Seeing him so fierce, Mugiuxi felt a little wronged. We all have urgent needs. Seeing this, Chusuan's heart softened. He lowered his voice. I was just behind you, by the riverbank. Didn't you call me? Do you know how worried I was when you didn't come back? Mugiuxi knew that now she could only depend on his protection. She could only apologize shyly. I'm sorry. At that moment, a voice sounded from not far away. Big brother, I've found the female in heat. She's over there. At that moment, a dozen crocodile beasts approached them. Greedy looks were fixed on Mugiuxi, who was in Chusuan's arms, the crocodile beast known as Big Brother. Suddenly, it took human form. He stared at Mugiuxi. When he saw the shoes on her feet, he frowned. It's you. You killed Brother 6. Several of the thugs behind him immediately protested upon hearing this. Big Brother, let's kill the tiger beast to avenge Brother 6 and then take that beautiful female. Chusuan slightly furrowed his brow. If you're going to fight, then fight. Don't talk so much. They're really arrogant. We are more than a dozen. A level 7 beast is more than enough to deal with you. Chusuan gave them a disdainful look. Then he gently set Xiaohu down on the ground. Later, it'll be too bloody. Go to the tunnel first and wait for me. Xiaohu, with a worried expression, grabbed his wrist. A couple of days ago, she and Qianya had been surrounded and beaten by a group of beasts. As a result, he fell into the water and his life was in danger. She really feared that something would happen to him too. Chusuan noticed her concern. Don't worry. Nothing will happen to me. He then pushed Xiaohu into the tunnel. He quickly transformed into his beast form and charged at the crocodile chief. His movements were quick and fierce. Frightened, the crocodile chief immediately transformed into his beast form. If he had been a second slower, his neck would have been pierced by this tiger beast. Kill him! With an order, the subordinates around him launched a frenzied attack on Chusuan. Chusuan knew that his specialty was the deadly spin. Dodging left and right, he avoided their blood-rushing onslaught. He grabbed their leader and began striking him with fury. The crocodile beast leader was confused. Why was this tiger beast attacking him in particular? Soon, Chusuan bit off his hand and broke it. Seeing that the situation was unfavorable, he quickly ran toward the river. Chusuan didn't chase after him. After all, Xiaoju was still in the cave, and the crocodile beasts, seeing their leader had fled, quickly began to escape as well. Chusuan let out a cold laugh. In just a few moves, he finished off the two slower crocodile beasts that were fleeing, so they wouldn't think they could intimidate him. Xiao Yu, curled up in the cave, nervously looked toward the entrance. The moment Chusuan entered, she seemed to see a light emanating from him. It illuminated her life. She quickly stood up and ran toward his warm embrace, calling out his name excitedly. Chusuan felt very happy at that moment. He really enjoyed the feeling of being needed by her. "Don't fall in love with me. I'm just a legend." Upon hearing that, Mugyuxi's ears turned slightly red. She quickly pulled away from his embrace. What a narcissist! Chusuan looked at her with that expression. He couldn't help but laugh softly. His eyes were full of tenderness. Mugyuxi covered her ears with her hands. Just a moment ago, it seemed like she understood the feeling of being captivated by someone instantly, like a person falling in love with a firefighter. She admitted that, at that moment, she felt a little moved. Chusuan, seeing her blush, stopped teasing her. "Go sit down. I'll make you another pair of shoes and clothes." Xiaoyao didn't fully understand. How can such a big man make clothes? In the earth she knew, men like that were nearly extinct. Chusuan sat beside her. "I scratched the beast skin with sharp claws. We have a tailoring shop at my house. My mother buys the fabric and makes the clothes herself." Also learned a little by being around. Mugyu was a bit surprised upon hearing that. Buying fabric and making clothes yourself? What era do you live in? During World War II. Hearing his answer, Mugyuxi felt a lump in her heart. In her time, she wanted to live well but couldn't. And in her peaceful time, she could live well but didn't want to. No wonder. Upon hearing that she had been hurt by love, he showed contempt on his face. Mugyuxi looked at him silently from the side. She couldn't help but think how nice it would be if he were her partner. But she also knew she wasn't worthy of him. In this dangerous world of beasts, she, who was weak, needed many companions. This wasn't fair to Chusuan. He should find a tigress as strong as him. Only equal forces make a good pair. Chusuan noticed her gaze. The corners of his lips involuntarily lifted. "What are you looking at? Have you fallen in love with me?" Mugyuxi looked away, embarrassed. "I won't love someone who doesn't love me. There are so many men in this world of beasts. You can even have multiple partners. Why would I love you?" Chusuan paused. Hearing her say that she wouldn't love him made him feel a bit uncomfortable inside. He glanced at Mugyuxi. "Could it be that you like a pig?" He was startled by his own thoughts. He quickly shook his head to get rid of the stupid idea. "I wouldn't fall in love with this pig with a brain full of love. It must be because of the bond between companions. That's why I feel something different for her." Mugyuxi took some fruit out of her space. She ate some apples, leaving pears and bananas for Chusuan. Satisfied and with nothing to do, she lay back on the beast skin to sleep. Chusuan looked at her tenderly as she slept after eating. He continued with his work. When everything was done, it was already late afternoon. He stood up to prepare dinner for her. As he reached the entrance of the cave, right behind a nearby bush, a crocodile beast was hiding. He laughed coldly inside. "They haven't given up yet. Seems like they haven't died enough. They dare to come here and spy." Chusuan collected some firewood and roasted some crocodile meat. The meat wasn't ready yet when Mugyuxi had already woken up. She, who needed to go to the bathroom, had just stepped outside the cave. She was stopped by Chusuan. "I'll accompany you." Mugyuxi, hurrying to go to the bathroom, didn't care whether he followed her or not. However, after just a couple of steps, she encountered a pair of bright green eyes. Not far from the cave, she was surrounded by orcs. There were crocodile beasts that appeared during the day. And there were also new giant lizard beasts. There were wolf beasts and bear beasts. The exception was that all of them were cold humans and abandoned beasts. When they saw Mugyu come out, they got excited. She really is a female in heat. She looks really cute and appetizing. Even if they couldn't mate with her, just looking at her a couple of times was already enjoyable. "Quick, stop me for a moment. I can't hold back anymore." They gazed at Mugyuxi hungrily. They wanted to pounce on her and take her away, but they held back, due to Chusuan's great strength. Seeing their gazes, Mugyuxi immediately lost her urge to urinate. Instinctively, she extended her hand and clung to Chusuan. "Don't be afraid, I won't let anything happen to you." Saying this, he carried her to a nearby bush. "Do it here, I'll protect you." Mugyuxi swallowed. She no longer cared about her dignity. She slowly crouched down, only thinking about relieving herself quickly. Otherwise, going out at midnight would be even more dangerous. After relieving herself, they quickly returned to the cave with Chusuan. Chusuan looked coldly at the beasts around. "Looks like we'll need to leave here tomorrow." The wolf beast, which had originally been eager to approach, after meeting Chusuan's cold gaze, reluctantly took 2 steps back. After returning to the cave, Chusuan continued roasting the meat calmly. Mugyuxi, however, felt very restless beside him. They stayed there keeping watch. "How are we going to sleep tonight? Do we have to endure them all night?" Chusuan handed her the roasted meat. "Go to sleep peacefully. With me here they won't come in. That group of beasts only has 3 or 4 levels. They are not a threat to me." Xiao Yu took the roasted meat and said nothing more. His words gave her a great sense of security. After they ate until satisfied, Chusuan transformed into his beast form to protect the entrance of the cave. The little Hyuxi, who had been in her own world, felt a wave of exhaustion. Without realizing it, she fell asleep. Although Chusuan was lying there resting, he still maintained a state of total alertness. Indeed, those persistent abandoned animals, seeing Chusuan close his eyes, began to approach cautiously. They tried to find a weakness, to launch an attack at the right moment. Chusuan got up, emanating a powerful pressure. He looked at them coldly, as if warning them that if they approached any further, he would not be so polite. The abandoned animals felt Chusuan's threat and began to retreat, afraid to act recklessly. Until the second half of the night, the abandoned animals launched a desperate attack. The beast then led the charge, and other beast orcs attacked from the sides. Other beasts attacked from the sides, and the crocodile beast tried to infiltrate the cave. It wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to kidnap Mugiwuxi. Seeing this, Chusuan showed no mercy. Every counterattack carried a lethal force. He struck the wolf beast's abdomen with one hand, causing it to fall to the ground, unable to move. And the bear beast also received a bite to the arm. It left with resentment, not accepting defeat. The other beastmen, seeing this, no longer wanted to fight. They all chose to flee. Chusuan returned to the entrance of the cave and licked his fur, as if nothing had happened. Mugyui, in the cave, had already woken up from the noise of the fight. When everything calmed down, she anxiously approached Chusuan. "Chusuan, you're not hurt?" "I'm not hurt. Keep sleeping," Chusuan said with a somewhat amused tone. This little piglet, for some reason, woke up this time. Was it his movement that was too noisy? That's how it was. Chusuan remained guarding until Mugyuxi woke up the next morning. "Pack your things. I'll take you back. This place is no longer safe, but my period of heat is not completely over yet." Mugyuxi felt a bit embarrassed. She still couldn't transform into a beast, though the amount of her cycle wasn't much anymore. But, somehow, there was still a bit left. "I'll carry you. You just need to put a beast skin over my back," Chusuan said while speaking. He entered the cave, crouched down, and picked up the beast skin she had used. The one she hadn't used, he handed it to her to store in her space. Then he took a small bag of crystal cores from the corner and handed it to her to store in her space. But he didn't tell her what was inside the bag. Afterward, he left, carrying Mugiuxi on his back. Mugiuxi looked at the road home. Her heart was a little excited. She looked back once and felt a bit discouraged. Is Tianya really not here? They hurried along. They found a cave to stay in before it got dark. While Chusuan roasted the meat, Mugi went to bathe in a nearby stream. She also took the opportunity to wash the beast skin she had used during the day. That night, the two of them lay down together on the prepared beast skin. Mugiuxi knew that Chusuan felt nothing for her, so she slept without worry. Chusuan watched her sleep so peacefully. He felt somewhat frustrated. After all, he was also a man. How could she have no caution? Didn't she worry that he might do something to her, even though she trusted herself? But she had a man beside her, and a man with great strength. Doesn't she have any other thoughts? He, frustrated, turned restlessly, unable to sleep. Although the scent on his body had diminished, he still seemed to feel something for her. Looking at her sleeping face, he swallowed. He got up uneasily and went to the entrance of the cave to blow in the cold air. He didn't return to the cave until midnight to lie down again. The next morning, Chusuan was startled when he saw a giant pig's head. "How did you turn back into a pig?" There was no warning. He had made her hug a pig and sleep for so long. Looking at the pig in front of him, he chuckled with resignation. "Well, the pig also looks quite cute." Xiao Yu woke up and, upon discovering that she had returned to her beast form, felt immense joy. She could finally shift between human and beast form. But when she saw Chusuan's frustrated expression, she felt a bit confused. She couldn't understand why he was so upset. Was it that being with a pig would lower his status? After breakfast, she walked cheerfully ahead. Chusuan, however, felt more depressed. The human form was much more beautiful. Why did she have to use the beast form? He called the little pig ahead. Musia, transform into a human. I'll carry you. How long are you going to stay in this beast form? Really, I saw you with an annoyed expression. I thought you didn't want to carry me. Chusuan approached her with a slight air of expectation. But he also pretended to be impatient. Hurry up and transform, how annoying! When he saw Xiao Yu transform back into a human, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. With such beauty present, who would want to look at a pig? Mugyuxi, who was adjusting her clothes, looked up and met his fiery gaze. You didn't even notice my human form, did you? Upon hearing her teasing, Chusuan looked away, somewhat embarrassed. Have you ever seen a tiger and a pig together? Who would notice you, a fool obsessed with love? Hurry up and come here. After these 2 or 3 days together, Mugyuxi realized that he was a hopeless arrogant. Still, he was a boastful arrogant. If you really like me, I might consider making you my first partner. What do you think? Hearing this, Chusuan felt his heart fill with something. It was a bittersweet, beautiful feeling. But thinking about how he had once been human, he was a powerful tiger. If he were with a pig, it would feel strange. So he rejected her firmly. Thank you for your kindness. I think a tigress is more suitable for me. Mugyuxi felt a bit disappointed upon hearing this. It's fine. I was the one who made illusions. In the next second, she felt anguished again. For her, the 2 or 3 days after her cycle ended were the real heat period. She didn't know what to do. It was hard to control her needs. But every time she saw that they finished their cycle, they stayed curled up at home with their male for several days without going out. Now she could only pray that she had been human once. To have strong self-control. She didn't want to be like a cat in heat, twisting like a noodle. Speaking of which, Chusuan understood the females of this beastly world. He wasn't afraid that in a couple of days he wouldn't find a male. And you couldn't control yourself and throw him to the ground, although he couldn't beat it. But seeing a female in heat in front of him was also hard to resist, right? Also, when he saw her transform into a human for the first time, her body clearly had a reaction. Mugyuxi pondered for a moment and dared to ask. Chusuan, do you know what happens when a female cycle ends? What happens? Isn't it easier to get pregnant? Mugyuxi sighed with relief upon hearing that. Thank goodness he doesn't know. If not, we used to be humans on Earth. He knows I want to find a man. How uncomfortable this must be. Better let's go back to the tribe quickly. So my father hurries up and arranges the adulthood ceremony. The two traveled all day. That night, while resting in the cave, Xiao Yu transformed again into her animal form. Chusuan saw the beautiful woman beside him. Suddenly, she turned into a little pig. He felt very frustrated inside. Why do you do that if you're fine? You're afraid I'll do something? The ground is uneven and my body hurts. The animal form has a layer of fur that covers it. I would sleep more comfortably. Xiao Yu lay there smiling. She was actually hoping he would do something. That way, she could have a level 7 companion to protect her. In this dangerous animal world, everyone wanted a strong companion. She was no exception. Hearing this, Chusuan felt a little guilty. This cave is just for passing the night, so it doesn't need to be so elaborate. When we get back to your tribe, I'll help you arrange your room. Seeing that Mugyuxi didn't have a human form, he transformed into his beast form and lay beside her. Suddenly, he remembered what she had said during the day. What did she mean by that? Was she hinting at something? Did she want to have children with him? Did she start to like him? Maybe she's just interested in his strength. He had already said that he would protect her all his life. In fact, it wasn't necessary to mate. Also, the river god had only allowed him to protect her for life. He didn't say he also had to be her mate. And with a pig. Anyway, it was strange. He kept thinking about it. In the end, he closed his eyes, irritated, and didn't want to think anymore. At midnight, he heard a voice in his dreams. Chusuan, Chusuan, I like you. I want to have a child with you. Let's mate. Chusuan seemed delighted by her sweet voice, gazing at those sensual and attractive lips. He couldn't resist and kissed her. At that moment, he didn't care if she was a pig. He just needed her to take human form. Help! Help, Chusuan! Help! The frightened Mugyuxi screamed uncontrollably, feeling as though something were biting her neck. Chusuan, still dreaming, was awakened by her scream. He released the mouth that was biting Mugyuxi's neck and cautiously looked toward the cave entrance after realizing there was no danger. With a serious expression, he looked at Mugyuxi, appearing very upset that his good moment had been interrupted. Mugyuxi, after he let her go, quickly stood up and backed away a few steps. It turned out that the one biting her neck was Chusuan. "Why are you grabbing my neck?" she questioned with a terrified expression. Hearing that, Chusuan recalled the dream he had just moments ago. He averted his gaze, showing an expression of discomfort and embarrassment. "I'm hungry." "He's a pig, which is naturally food for a tiger." I couldn't resist at that moment. Mugyuxi nearly broke down right there upon hearing that. "Now I'm a beast? I'm not a pure pig. Do you really want to eat me?" He stood up, his back to her, defending his stance without reason. "Then, just don't transform into your beast form." Mugyuxi looked at him wide-eyed. She insulted him behind his back. "Don't push it." "That's true. What kind of attack can come from a form? The beast form is hardly used. Anyway, I will always protect you. What does it matter if you use your beast form or not? Though that's true, we're outside now. The beast form is more convenient. I don't need you to do anything. The human form is more convenient for you." He transformed into a human and stood up to head toward the cave exit. "Now that you're awake, give me the meat. I'm gonna make a barbecue." The meat transformed into a human and appeared out of nowhere. "I feel like I can't communicate with this person." After eating to his satisfaction, the two continued on their way toward the Black Pig tribe. Passing by the horse tribe, many orcs' attention was drawn to them. Upon realizing she had no partner, they approached to show off their strength. "Little female, look at me. I'm already at level 3. Will you consider me as your first partner?" Chusuan saw the orc males pouncing on them. He immediately felt a bit frustrated. "Everyone, back off!" However, Mugyuxi smiled and responded. "I'm from the Black Pig tribe next door. In a couple of days, we'll have the adulthood ceremony. You all must come when that happens. Tianjia from the 6th level doesn't know where he's gone. No one knows if he's still alive. Chusuan from the 7th level doesn't care about me. These from levels 3 and 4 are not bad either. Anyway, except for Tianjia and Chusuan, I haven't seen any young males above level 5. Also, my mother's male has only level 3 or 4. Doesn't he protect his mother well?" Several males from the horse tribe, upon hearing this, suddenly exploded. Their expressions of excitement said it all. Chusuan, with a gloomy expression, led her away, thinking about those beastmen who were only at levels 3 or 4, who in the future would become her partners. He felt very uncomfortable inside, but the idea of her having relations with a pig felt a bit unpleasant. Also, he didn't even know if she really liked him. Seeing her happy made Chusuan even more upset. "You're so happy, of course. In the future, I'll have someone who will protect me with all their heart. All of them will want me and take care of me. The love I didn't get in my past life, I'll finally have in this one. And it's not just one. What reason do I have not to be happy?" Whenever there were emotions between her brother and father, she was very jealous. "In Esme, you can also have this dragon's love." Chusuan felt a bit down after hearing that. He frowned. "Didn't I tell you that I'd always protect you? Why don't I see you so happy?" "Maybe it's the same. That's the protection of my man. It's full of love. It's not the same as a bodyguard." "A bodyguard? Do you think of me as a bodyguard?" Upon hearing that word, Chusuan suddenly couldn't stay still. "And if not, guardian god?" "If you like the word guardian god, it's not bad either. It definitely sounds better than bodyguard." You! Chusuan was so angry that he didn't know what to say. He didn't know either. He hoped that she would consider him in some way. At night, Chusuan didn't let her transform into beast form to sleep. Instead, he asked her to take animal skins out of space. He laid several layers on the ground for sleeping. Mugyuxi had no choice but to do it. She also didn't dare transform into beast form in front of Chusuan to sleep. She feared that he might unknowingly eat her. After she fell asleep, Chusuan slowly opened his eyes. He looked at her tenderly. The dream from last night still lingered in his mind. He started to doubt whether he really liked her in the dream. He didn't care if she was a pig, maybe because he had the genes of this world, making him similar to the males here. Was that why it was easy to like a female? Speaking of which, what did he really like about her? Her appearance? But he had seen many beauties. Her personality? She was so stupid it was unbearable. She only thought about love and romance all the time. What was good about that to make him like her? So he didn't like her, right? She was just a great beauty lying beside him. He was just involuntarily attracted. He sarcastically scolded himself. Instinctively, he wanted to hug her while she slept.
In the next second, he retracted his hand stiffly.
The next morning, Xiaofan, still groggy, felt a warm breath on her neck. She opened her eyes wide. She met the beautiful face of Zhuzuan, who was peacefully sleeping on her neck. One hand was resting on her waist. His body was pressed against hers. This ambiguous position, clearly only between partners. What did Zhuzuan really mean? He despised her and still took advantage of her. In human form, he wanted to eat her, and in beast form, he wanted to as well. Ahem, she coughed twice in frustration. Zhuzuan, awakened by her, looked at her in confusion. He had the expression of someone who hadn't fully woken up. Why are you so close to me? You've gotten used to taking advantage of me, haven't you?
Hearing that, Zhuzuan quickly withdrew his hand, embarrassed, and moved a little further back. He didn't know what had happened. How did I end up like this while you were sleeping? He, embarrassed, looked away. Was it because I was afraid a bad beast might kidnap you? That's why I got a bit closer?
What kind of excuses are you making? Do you even believe them yourself?
Mugiuxi snorted, making it clear that she wasn't buying the excuse. She stretched lazily and took out some fruits from her space. After satisfying her hunger a bit, they both continued on their way.
By noon, they finally arrived at the goat village that Mugiuxi knew well. Upon seeing the familiar place, she was so excited that she almost jumped. They were finally close to home.
A few beastmen goats who were cutting grass gave them surprised looks. Who is she? She's so beautiful. Several brave ones approached directly to ask. Little female, look at me, look at me. I've reached level 4. Do you want to choose me as your partner?
They saw how they were being ridiculed. She rolled her eyes. What are you staring at, sister? Open your eyes wide and see who I am. If you can't see well, move your noses a bit. Smell my scent. Think again about who I really am.
Several beastmen goats were stunned by the insults. They saw their sister, but they had no sister. Open your eyes wide, but they were clearly beastmen goats.
After sniffing her scent, several were immediately stunned in place.
Are you a pig beastman? Is it Mugiuxi who doesn't go into heat? It must be a coincidence, I don't believe it.
Mugiuxi snorted. Believe whatever you want. Zhuzuan didn't even bother to look at that group of beastmen. He took Mugiuxi to the Black Pig tribe.
The beastman goat watched them leave. He quickly followed. 11 to 11, I was wrong. Give me a chance, please. Hurry, don't go. I beg you, forgive me. Hearing those names, Mugiuxi almost vomited her breakfast. Zhuzuan was also frightened by those names. His skin crawled. Seeing those beastmen approaching, he quickly took Mugiuxi and sped up. It wasn't even afternoon yet. They had already reached the Black Pig tribe.
When he saw her father, Xiaohu couldn't help but shed tears of joy.
In just a few days, her father seemed to have aged a lot.
Father, I'm back. Penide couldn't believe his eyes. His female cub dragged by the flood. Turns out she was still alive. And had turned human. His cub had finally reached adulthood. Penide spoke incoherently, excited. Just come back! Just come back! Just as they arrived near the house, she saw her mother sitting alone at the cave entrance from afar. Her gaze was empty as she looked out at the horizon. Her eyes were swollen and red. Clearly she had been crying recently.
Xiaohu's heart immediately tightened. She ran toward her mother in desperation. Mother, I'm back!
As Xiang slowly turned her head, her eyes full of sadness. When she recognized Mugiuxi, they were filled with disbelief and surprise. Xiaohu? Is it really you? Mugiuxi threw herself into her arms. Mother, it's me. I've made you worry. Asian's tears couldn't stop once again. My little one, you're alive. How wonderful. After returning home, Mugiuxi briefly explained what had happened over the past few days.
Pemir felt sorrow for Tianya. The male protects his mate. The sacrifices are not few. In such matters, you just have to relax a bit. There's no other alternative.
As for Zhuzuan, whom Xiaohu spoke of, they didn't understand him well. After all, it's the male's responsibility to protect the female. But that tiger man rejected Xiaohu. However, they shouldn't ask too much. As parents, all they could do was prepare her adulthood ceremony for tomorrow. After dinner, Xiaohu took Zhuzuan to the cave where Tianya had lived before. Looking at the decorations inside, Xiaohu felt nostalgic. Stay here for a while. I'll go first. Mugiuxi turned to leave, but Zhuzuan called out, Wait a moment. Get me some beast skins. I'll make 2 sets of clothes. Mugiuxi didn't ask any further. She took some beast skins from her space and handed them over. Zhuzuan placed them on the ground. Let's go, I'll take you back. Mugiuxi smiled and refused. It's not far. I can go back alone. Let's hurry. What if a bad beast catches you? Where would I find you?
He walked ahead on his own, not looking back at Mugyuxi.
The two walked one in front of the other. This situation made Zhao He think of Tianya. He had also taken her like this before. Now he didn't know where that other person was.
Chusuan took Mugyuxi home. Then he quickly returned to the previous cave.
He sat on the ground. His fingers turned into claws and began scratching the beast's skin. At that moment, in a large hole, a man with an extremely seductive and cold appearance was reclining sideways on a large rock. A crocodile beastman with a broken arm approached to inform him. King, a 7th-level tiger beastman has recently arrived. He's the one who bit my arm. He also killed 3 of my subordinates. This tiger is really threatening to us cold-blooded beastmen. We must drive him away, or kill him. The man lazily opened his cold vertical eyes. In this area, there are more herbivorous beastmen. Carnivorous beastmen believe herbivores are too weak. They generally look down on them. How could a 7th-level carnivore be staying here?
The crocodile saw that the king wasn't speaking. He quickly added, "Next to that tiger, there's a young, beautiful pig beast. And she's white. I've never seen such a beautiful pig beast. Plus, she's without a mate. She's in heat."
Hearing this, the man finally showed some reaction. He quickly approached the crocodile, full of joy. He confirmed several times. "Are you talking about the white pig beast? She's in heat?" The crocodile didn't know how to react. "Yes? Yes, King? Is there a problem?"
The man laughed several times after hearing this. The corner of his lips kept lifting. His cold green eyes stared determinedly into the distance. "Mugyuxi, it's been 10 years. It really made me wait so long."
At that moment, Mugyuxi was lying in her grass nest. She was so excited that she couldn't sleep. She didn't know how many people would attend her adulthood ceremony tomorrow, or who her first companion would be. It was as if, after the marriage competition, she had the feeling of marrying and immediately entering the optional room. While thinking, she slowly fell asleep.
Chusuan came early in the morning to take her clothes to Ohyu.
Then he saw that group of wolf-like males. They were all surrounding the entrance of her cave. He looked at the clothes he had made for her all night. His mood was very complex. He didn't hand her the clothes directly. Instead, he sent them via PIDE and left silently.
Xiaohu saw that she really liked the clothes Zhuzuan had made. Perhaps it was because both of them were from the same land. Their aesthetic standards were quite similar. As noon approached, Mugyuxi transformed into her animal form, accompanied by her parents. She slowly walked toward the tribe's plaza.
It was full of herbivorous beastmen from various tribes. Some had come to watch the spectacle, and others to participate in the competition. With the official start of the adulthood ceremony, Zhao Hu in animal form, under a fur cloak,
she transformed into human form in front of the crowd.
The beastmen in the audience instantly fell silent.
Her uniquely styled outfit made her seem as if a beast god was descending. With a cry of horror, the beastmen participating in the competition immediately began fighting. Whoever could stand at the end would be Mugyuxi's first companion. This had been the tribe's rule for a long time.
Mugyu watched as the beastmen fought, their faces bruised. At that moment, she didn't know what to say. She only hoped that the one who won in the end wouldn't stray too far from her tribe. Chusuan, who was lying in the cave, listening to those sounds, felt uneasy. He didn't know what was happening. Clearly, he didn't like it. But why, when thinking about her, would she be with another man intimately tonight?
He became angry without realizing it.
With his large claws gripping the ground, 2 small figures appeared in his mind. One told him to stop her from looking for a mate. The other refused to be with a pig. He didn't know how much time had passed. The shouting outside ceased.
At that moment, Chusuan could no longer stay seated. He quickly stood up and ran toward the adulthood ceremony. In the tribe's plaza, a brown bear beastman, covered in blood, slowly approached Mugyuxi. He stood up, transformed into human form, fixed his hair, and wiped the blood from the corner of his lips. He stared intensely at Mugyuxi.
"Little female, I've won. Can I be your mate?" Mugyu forced a smile. "Yes." "No." Chusuan's deep voice came from not too far away. He took a few steps and jumped onto the stage. And then, as he stepped onto the stage, he transformed into human form. Mugyuki looked confused. "What are you doing? What's going on here?" Without saying a word, Chusuan grabbed her hand and was about to leave. Mugyuxi struggled hard, but in vain. "Hey, what are you doing? You're hurting me. Let me go quickly." The beastman, hearing this, intervened in front of them. I ask you to let go of my female." Upon hearing the fool in front of him call Mugyuxi his female,
Chusuan immediately became furious. He bit down hard on his lower jaw. Unconsciously, he tightened Mugyuxi's wrist a little more. With clenched teeth, he uttered 3 words. "You don't deserve her." Mugyu was confused by his behavior. The beastman in front of her was at level 5. He far exceeded her expectations. "Chusuan, what's wrong with you? Don't you want to find a wife? But could you stop me from looking for a man? He's level 5. Even though his strength isn't as strong as yours, he's still very outstanding in this area." Chusuan suppressed his anger and replied respectfully, "He's only level 5. He's too weak."
Mugyuxi almost laughed at the anger when she heard that.
"Where am I going to find someone above level 5? Let me go quickly. Don't make a fool of yourself here." He turned around and looked at her seriously. "Don't look anymore. I'll be your man."
What? Mugyuxi could hardly believe what she was hearing. Didn't you always complain that I'm a pig? Why is it suddenly like this now? She looked at him, confused.
Chusuan spoke to her word by word. "I said I'll be your man. Don't look anymore. Use your love-focused mindset to love me."
As soon as he finished speaking, he extended a large hand to hold the back of her head. He pulled her toward him, then lowered his head and kissed her soft lips. Mugyuxi stood frozen in place.
What the hell is Chusuan doing? Is he serious or is he joking? Chusuan saw that she was staring at him wide-eyed with a vacant expression. He lightly bit her lips as a punishment. "Don't you understand? You! Mugi still hadn't said anything. Chusuan kissed her lips again. "Mugyuxi," a furious voice echoed from afar.
In the blink of an eye, an extremely seductive-looking man appeared in front of them. He extended his hands with anger to separate them. Then, he quickly embraced Mugyuxi. With his hand, he disdainfully wiped the tiger's saliva from her lips. After wiping it, he immediately kissed her, taking her lips aggressively as if he wanted to cover up the tiger's scent.
Things happened too quickly.
Everyone had an expression of confusion, completely not understanding why. Even Mugyuxi was the same.
Chusuan, seeing this, became enraged.
He instantly transformed into his signature animal form. He fought with the serpent that suddenly appeared.
Mugyuxi, stunned, stayed where she was, looking at the enormous serpent in front of her. Her memory was instantly pulled back 10 years.
When she first met the serpent, he was still a young man full of energy. Though he was a cold-blooded beastman, he didn't treat her as food.
For Conan, the small white pig, tender and pink,
he found her very curious.
Thinking of raising her and having her by his side didn't seem bad. Xiao Hu, surrounded by the serpent, had thought about escaping. But she couldn't escape at all. She didn't understand. This guy didn't eat her, nor would he let her go back home, which was what she really wanted.
Until one day, a group of beasts surrounded him.
Though Min barely won in the end, he didn't allow Xiao Hu to be hurt. But at the same time, he made her realize a problem that, with her current strength, she couldn't guarantee her safety at all. In the end, he chose to send Xiao Hu back to the tribe. Before they separated, her eyes were full of reluctance and determination.
"Remember, my name is Min. I am your future partner. I will seek you out again when you're in heat." After that, Muxi never saw him again.
Now, seeing him again, Xiao Hu couldn't help but feel a bit surprised. At that time, she hadn't fully accepted it. After all, the snake had an excessively strong possessiveness.
Moreover, he also needed to hibernate. She couldn't spend the winter alone. She hadn't included him among her companions. After several exchanges, Chusuan, at the 7th level, was clearly no match for Conmin, who was at the 8th level. Conmin, with his robust body, enveloped Chusuan without letting him escape, intending to strangle him.
The pressure from that strength
made the beastmen around feel an unprecedented fear. Some even weakened and fell to the ground. Among them was Hyuxi. That powerful pressure was unbearable for her, as she had no level. She looked at the large snake with an expression of pain, emptiness, and serenity. Despite the pressure, she whispered his name. It seemed like he heard her call. In his eyes, the glaciers melted instantly. Surprisingly, she still didn't remember. In her gaze was astonishment and a slight flash of surprise because the icy atmosphere created by his pressure softened instantly. The next second, Xiao Hu collapsed to the ground, her face pale. Kongming, seeing this, quickly transformed into a human and ran to her. He gently held her in his arms. His eyes were full of tenderness. "Xiaobai, how are you? Are you hurt?" Muxi forced a smile. "Thanks to you, I'm not dead yet." Upon hearing this, Kongming lifted her and left the clan. I will take you right now. I have a crystal there. I won't let anything happen to you.
Hearing that he wanted to take her, Muxianuxi strongly opposed it in her heart. No, I'm not going. I'm getting better little by little. I don't need to eat crystal.
What are you talking about?
Will I be able to come back if I go with him?
Kongming saw that she didn't want to leave with him. His brows furrowed slightly. His previously pleasant mood suddenly collapsed because of her decision. He had waited for her for 10 years. He had silently protected her for 10 years. She didn't want to leave with him.
Does she want to stay and pair with other males?
He had protected her so much for 10 years, and now, just like that, she wants to leave with someone else? How could he not be angry about this?
So he decided to ignore her will.
He grabbed her and quickly left the Black Pig tribe.
Chuzan saw how they forcibly took Xiaohu.
Bearing the pain from several broken ribs, biting his tongue, he stood up and quickly followed them. The beastmen watched as they stole the female. Also feeling unsatisfied, he ran toward Mugyuxi. At that moment, Mugyu felt despondent. Could she not escape this? But how would she survive during her hibernation?
She looked at the snake man in front of her and cautiously opened her mouth. How did you know I am already an adult? The timing was perfect. He didn't find any companion for her. This area is already my territory. For these 10 years, I have been watching you, so don't think about escaping. Stay by my side and be my female.
Mugyuxi was immediately shocked upon hearing this. Since when had this area become his territory? But thinking that he was at the 8th level, it was understandable. That meant she wouldn't have to wander with him. She could even return to see her parents frequently.
Thinking of this, she looked at him with joy. With me, you have a stable place to stay. That means you don't have to run everywhere.
No, I have to patrol the territory. I won't stay in one place for long.
6 years ago, when he reached the 7th level, he had been expelling and hunting beasts of level 5 or above in this area, just so she could grow safely. After ascending to the 8th level, the cold-blooded beastmen in this area recognized him as their king. That's also why the territory had become more expansive. Xiaohu responded weakly with an "oh." But thinking that he had been watching over her for 10 years, she felt both touched and scared. To put it nicely, he had been in someone's mind for 10 years. To put it bluntly, she had been marked by a cold beastman for 10 years. To put it in a way that wouldn't scare her,
impossible. With Min, I like you, Yes, I like you, Min replied without hesitation. I used to think of you as a little piglet, so peculiar, wanting to catch you and play for a few days, and I don't know how, while playing, I started thinking of making you my female, so the idea of protecting you arose.
And it was from then that his beastly life seemed to have a purpose.
There were also expectations. That was to protect her in silence and wait for her to grow. He had waited for her for 10 years. Did she not understand his feelings?
Since you like me, then who will take care of me during your winter hibernation? Don't you fear that I'll freeze to death? Wouldn't you be sad if I die?
I'll prepare the things you need for the cold season. The worst that can happen is that I die with you. Bleh, I don't want to die with you, reincarnating as a pig. She doesn't have big ambitions. She just wants to live this life peacefully. Kongming's eyes were filled with confusion. So, what do you want to do?
Mugyuxi felt uncomfortable under his gaze. Lowering her head, she stammered. I want to find someone who can also be by my side and take care of me during the cold season.
But the next second, he directly denied it. Then, you won't get it. I said it 10 years ago. Live as my female. Die and become my food. Do you want to find another male? Don't even think about it.
Mugyuxi was speechless.
If he didn't have to hibernate, being with such a strong person, she could be in 7th heaven. But unfortunately, he had to hibernate. Did she have to stay watching that dark cave? Was he waiting for her to wake up?
He had been traveling all day.
Kongming took her to rest by a river. Seeing her small face red from the sun, his heart ached a little. He took some water from the river with his hand and gave it to her to drink. Looking at those red lips that moistened as she drank, it reminded him of the unfinished kiss. He couldn't help but want to try it again.
He gently held her chin. Unable to resist, he kissed her.
Mugyuxi looked at his attractive face that suddenly approached. Her heart stopped for a moment. She stared at him in shock. With her eyes closed, he kissed her passionately. His hot breath spread across her face. His breath became quicker. His appearance seemed eager to devour her. He held her tighter and tighter. It seemed like he wanted to pull her into his body. That face of extreme temptation, full of desire, made one unable to resist wanting to sink in with him.
Perhaps he realized that she was stiff and unmoving. With his gaze slightly in his eyes, he saw that she was staring at him while he kissed her. Those green eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. The corners of his lips curved slightly. It turns out that Xiao Bai likes to watch.
Muxiuxi heard his mockery. Immediately, her face turned red, and she felt embarrassed, explaining,
You kissed me. Am I supposed to enjoy it with my eyes closed?
Seeing her embarrassed expression, with Min felt even happier. At that moment of pairing, he tried to choose during the day.
Muxiuxi was speechless, so embarrassed she couldn't speak. Looking at her increasingly red face, with Min gently caressed her, unable to pull away from her. Xiao Bai's human form seems very suitable. I like it a lot.
Muxiuxi, embarrassed, pushed that beautiful face away. If I were a black pig, wouldn't you have to call me Zhao Ai? If I get disfigured, would you stop wanting me as your female?
Chow, he's fine too. If I get disfigured, then no one will fight with you for me.
Thinking that the tiger also kissed her, a surge of anger rose in his chest. Looking at those slightly parted lips, he kissed her again, bringing a bit of anger with it. His movements were no longer as gentle as before. A long time passed. She finally breathed with difficulty in Kunmin's arms. The corner of Kunmin's lips lifted slightly. He stood up satisfied. He placed her under a large tree for her to rest. Wait here, I'll go fishing. After Kunmin left,
Muxiuxi began to look around. She wanted to see if Chusuan had come after her. At that moment, he had been so severely beaten by Kunmin, she didn't know if it had caused him any life-threatening injuries.
And also the things he said. Did he really say he wanted to be her man? Did he really? Had he lost his mind for a moment? She had given him multiple chances before, and he rejected them. How could he have changed his mind in just one night?
Looking around and not seeing Chusuan's figure, she let out a sigh of relief.
It's fine if he doesn't come. Even if he does, he can't compete with Kunmin. He would just be a target for abuse. He had been forced to protect her. Kunmin is at level 8, he is at level 7. He couldn't do anything either, right? At that moment, Chusuan was struggling to follow her trail. It was just that the broken ribs made him move much slower. Tiger, better rest for a moment. That way, even if he finds Muxiuxi, he won't be able to save her. The bear that followed him saw him walking with such difficulty. He really couldn't bear to remind him. However, Zhuzuan didn't pay him any attention. He knew he couldn't defeat that snake. He also knew that trying to fight directly wouldn't work, but his responsibility was to protect her, as long as she didn't want him to leave. Even if he had to risk his life, he had to take her back from the snake's claws.
If she wanted to be with that snake, then he would continue protecting her. If the snake hurt her, he would take her away. He had been following her all the way.
When he saw Xiaoju sitting alone under the tree, just as he was about to approach, he saw the snake coming out of the river. With a big fish in its hand,
it quickly hid in the bushes. Now he had an injury. He couldn't retrieve anything by force. In case the snake discovered his presence, it would come to hit him and then leave quickly with Yuxi. He feared he might not even be able to follow her, so now he secretly followed her. Let's see where this snake wants to take her, Ohyu. Then I'll find the opportunity to ask her what she thinks. The bear behind him saw him stop. He also hid among the grass.
Kunmin glanced at the distant silhouette. A disdainful smile curved his mouth. No matter who it is, no one should think of taking Xiao Bai from his side. He took out 2 stones and began to start a fire to cook fish. Upon seeing the fire stones, Xiao Hu was surprised. How do you know these stones can make fire? I discovered it by accident. I know you prefer cooked meat. You'll need it later. So I took note of it. Xiao Hu didn't expect him to be so thoughtful. So, where do you plan to take me now? We'll return to my current place. There I have the beast skins and snake sheds I've collected over the years. Then, I'll help you make plenty of clothes. A flash of surprise passed through Xiao Hu's eyes. He seems like an authoritative leader who only knows how to make money, but it seems like he doesn't know how to do anything else. She didn't expect him to also know how to make clothes. Very well, very well. It would be even better if I could accept him finding a partner during the cold season. After she ate enough, Kunmin was about to reach out to lift her and continue on their way, but she was kindly rejected by Xiao Hu. I just ate enough. I want to walk a bit to digest, but I want to hold you. Come on, it will get dark soon, and there will be a lot of mosquitoes. Saying this, Mugyuxi smiled and walked ahead. Looking at her sweet smile, Kanmin's lips lifted involuntarily. He quickly approached and took her small hand, walking beside her. His eyes were full of happiness.
Chuswan, hiding in the weeds, saw the two leaving, laughing and talking. A sharp pain surged in his heart. He regretted not understanding her feelings earlier.
Now, all he could do was watch as she left with another. But he felt so helpless. If he had only expressed his feelings for her earlier, wouldn't she have gone with the snake instead? With a gray heart, he followed them silently. No matter who she chooses in the end, he would always be by her side to protect her. When the moonlight rose, Mugyuxi and Kanmin finally found a suitable place to live. Kanmin lifted her in his arms. There were no longer beast skins underneath. The ground was too hard. Tonight, she will sleep on me. No need. I can sleep in animal form. In fact, there are beast skins in my space. But they are Chuswan's. It doesn't feel right using them without his permission. Kanmin pressed her firmly against his snake tail. His upper body also leaned toward her. I like being close to Xiaobai. Mugyuxi looked at him in surprise. So you're already forming a pair? She wasn't psychologically prepared for it yet. The next second, she was covered by his cold lips. Soon after, he stopped again. He forgot that Xiaobai enjoyed watching. Hearing his teasing, Mugyuxi was speechless and embarrassed. She thought about how awkward it was to be so close during the day. Blushing, she murmured softly. If we're going to pair up, then let's precarious. Why choose between day and night? Perhaps she had been influenced by the beast world. In her heat period, she actually wanted to pair with him as soon as possible. She thought she was definitely crazy. Kanmin hugged her and rubbed her neck ambiguously. Of course, I must remember it well. Hearing this, Mugyuxi quickly averted her gaze. Time to sleep. Time to sleep. Really, talking about these things with her is mortifying. The next morning, Xiaoyu woke up comfortably in Kanmin's arms. Kanmin looked at her, smiling faintly. Xiaoyu's scent still smelled like when she was little. Soft and sweet, it made one want to devour it in a bite. No, that idea is very dangerous. Saying this, he took some red fruits from his space. Kanmin was very surprised to see this. Where did you get this?
Mugyuxi intended to pair with him. She also believed in his feelings toward her. She didn't want to hide it. She explained the use of the space.
Kanmin was slightly surprised. Why didn't I see you use it before? When I met you, you were only 6 years old and didn't have it. You got it during the flood when you were 10. I see. Just thinking about the flood that year made him feel a little scared. At that time, he had rescued her from the flood. She could barely breathe, and he didn't know medicine. He could only go to a nearby tribe to find a veterinarian. Fortunately, everything turned out fine in the end. He hadn't expected her to get something so wonderful at that time. It's fine.
Over the years, he had accumulated so much beast leather and snake skin for her. Finally, there was a place to store it. He handed the skinner to Mugyuxi so she could store it in her space.
Looking at the stone that disappeared from his hands, even though she was already psychologically prepared, she was still surprised by the magical scene. After finishing breakfast, Kanmin hugged her and quickly crossed the forest. He was in a hurry to do something else. If he delayed, he would have to wait until tomorrow. At noon, Kanmin took Xiaoyu to his home.
Mugyuxi was astonished to see the huge hole in the ground in front of her. Many flowers and herbs grew here, and there was also a flowing stream. It was practically like an earthly paradise.
At that moment, a crocodile beastman with one arm came running toward them. Frightened, Xiaoyu shrank into Kanmin's arms.
He transformed into a human and exclaimed excitedly, "King, that's the female. Did you really capture her? The king is really formidable. Did you kill that tiger man?"
Mugyuxi realized upon hearing this. This crocodile beast man was from the group that tried to capture her a few days ago. His arm had been bitten off and broken by Chuswan. Hearing this, he said he wanted to kill Chuswan. Mugyuxi suddenly became a little anxious. She couldn't let Kanmin kill Chuswan. A few days ago, this crocodile beast man brought a group to capture me. He also told me to go with him. I was almost scared to death. Fortunately, Chuswan saved me. Otherwise, I would have been completely exploited by them.
Please, don't kill Chuswan.
Kanmin frowned upon hearing this. If it hadn't been for that tiger beast, his little Bai would have probably been truly humiliated by Feng Lin and his group. But If Feng Lin hadn't had a stroke of luck, returning to tell him that his little Bai was in heat, he would have definitely missed it.
Between the two of them, helping one wouldn't be right. But that tiger beast wanted to chase after little Bai. This bothered him a lot. To avoid being disturbed by that tiger during their pairing, let's just let Feng Lin handle it. So he promised to Xiao Bai, I won't kill him. Then he glanced at Feng Lin. Your business, solve it yourselves.
Feng Lin was stunned. How can I solve it? I can't beat that tiger. Don't let anyone bother me these days. After saying this, he took Mugiuxi to the cave. Then, he gently placed her on the stone. At that moment, his eyes were full of tenderness. I'll roast some meat. Be back soon.
Mugiuxi got up and began exploring the cave. In addition to a bunch of animal skins and snake molts, there was also quite a bit of firewood piled up. Mugiuxi felt moved. It turned out, he had prepared everything already.
It wasn't long before Kanmin entered with a lot of roasted meat. Eat quickly. Replenish your energy.
Mugiuxi laughed at his words. It made it seem like a hard battle was about to happen. It's not just pairing, but she didn't know. Snake beasts need at least a day to pair. At most, it could take several days to finish.
That's why Kanmin asked her to eat a bit more. Otherwise, he was worried she wouldn't be able to handle it. While Mugiuxi ate the meat, Kanmin took out several animal skins and spread them over the stone bed. Worried that later he might hit her too hard, he even kindly prepared water and placed it by her side. After finishing everything, Kanmin approached Mugiuxi with an ambiguous expression. Have you eaten enough? No, I'm still not full, Xiaobai said nervously, but the next second, she uncontrollably let out a burp.
Embarrassed, she looked up at Kanmin. She found him looking at her with a loving expression, but thinking that she would soon pair with him, she pulled back again. She was about to get up from the bed
when she was stopped by Kanmin. He approached imposingly and buried his head in her neck. He deeply inhaled her scent. His voice had a hint of pleading. Xiaobai, don't go, don't leave me.
The snake beasts, since the moment they were born, had lived alone all the time.
He had lived alone and in solitude for 30 years. He longed to have someone to accompany him. Xiaobai, I like you, he whispered softly in her ear. His hot breath brushed against her ear. He hugged her tightly. He kissed her tenderly.